Chapter 585. He doesn't lack female friends. As long as he wants to, he won't lack girlfriends either. As Lu Che said these words, his expression was serious. In his dark eyes, all he could see was Su Qingyin's reflection. He wanted her to understand that he wasn't joking. Su Qingyin glanced at Tang Jingxian, who was lying in bed, before looking back at Lu Che. She nodded her head cautiously. She understood that Lu Che was serious, but she didn't understand the meaning behind his words. It didn't take long before Tang Jingxian awoke from his slumber. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Su Qingyin sitting by his bedside. He was a little surprised as he sat up and held onto his stomach. "How did you find out?" "Song Yinshu came looking for me. She said you got hurt because of her." "Really?" Tang Jingxian asked with a smile. He had no intention of explaining himself to Su Qingyin. "Don't worry, Lu Che is here to take care of me. Lu Che has a wife and a job. Why would he stay here to take care of you?" As she spoke, Su Qingyin placed a bowl of chicken soup in front of Tang Jingxian. "So, it's best if you leave this task to me. Is this another show of solidarity between old classmates?" Tang Jingxian accepted the bowl with a smile. "Can't you just let go of that woman?" "I don't think so," Tang Jingxian replied as he drank his soup. "But that woman wasn't Song Yinshu. Her name was Su Qingyin." Lu Che was ordered to return to Hyatt Regency to report on Tang Jingshuan's situation. Of course, he also mentioned how Song Yinshu tried to sow discord in front of Su Qingyin. After hearing everything, Tongning remained calm as usual. However, the words that came out of her mouth contained a deeper meaning and a hint of ridicule. Has she been bewitched? She's become a completely different person. "Madam," Tongning did not say a word. She simply turned around and looked at the man who had his arms around her and was busy with work. Imo Ting sensed his wife's gaze, so without lifting his head, he said, "Give all the good young talent she has to someone else. From now on, put her in charge of the artists that are currently being shelved and have a criminal record. Give her a warning." "Is that all?" Lu Che felt that if he continued to keep Song Yinshu around, she would cause trouble sooner or later. Instead of letting her scheme somewhere else, it's better to let her be right under our noses. After hearing this, Lu Che understood Imo Ting's intention. However, for the person that she had once confided in to suddenly become a stranger, she couldn't help but feel a little complicated. But, in this industry, any kind of relationship was normal. Although Tongning was a little disappointed, she did not force herself. After all, the most important thing right now was the Fei Tian Awards, and the most important thing was to get revenge on Tang Xin. After experiencing so much, Tongning began to experience new things. Especially now that she was 6 months pregnant, some things in her heart had slowly changed. February 13th was the day of the Fei Tian Awards ceremony. All the major websites began to predict who the winners of the awards would be. But, as one of the most prestigious awards in the country, the Fei Tian Awards managed to maintain its mysteriousness. Although there were many twists and turns during the selection process, the award would still be given to the person who deserved it the most. In this regard, the internet has already begun to discuss. In the past, I didn't pay attention to the Fei Tian Awards. I'm only curious about the results of this year's awards because of the war. I'm sure I'm not the only one. +1. +2. This is so strange. Logically speaking, Hai Rui's Tongning caused the most trouble this time, so everyone's attention should be placed on her. But the strange thing is, everyone still believes in the fairness of the Fei Tian Awards. That's because it's hard to predict Tongning's character. Who knows, she might give up on the award at the last moment and change careers to become a singer. Capable people can be so willful. Good luck, Tongning. It's almost time for the awards ceremony. I can't wait to find out who the winner of the Best Newcomer Award will be. Faced with all the excitement online, Imo Ting was no longer anxious. After all, Tongning was still the best female lead in his heart. That night, inside Hyatt Regency's wardrobe, Long Jia had delivered the dress that Tongning was wearing for the awards ceremony the next day. As Tongning looked at her reflection in the mirror, she suddenly felt a little unfamiliar. "It's been a long time since I've dressed up like this. I'm suddenly not used to it," Tongning mumbled as she looked at Long Jia through the mirror. "What do you think?" The dress was a mid-sleeved, round-neck silver dress. The body of the dress was covered in translucent snowflake lace. The exquisite workmanship made Tongning look exceptionally pure and elegant. Of course, as this was her first public appearance since announcing her pregnancy, Tongning wanted everyone to know that she was no longer the infertile woman that everyone had been talking about. She was in good condition, and no one needed to worry about her. Long Jie scanned Tongning from head to toe and raised a thumb. "You're the only person who can maintain such a good figure despite being 6 months pregnant." Tongning smiled in relief. At this time, Mo Ting had finished his work and was walking into the wardrobe. As soon as he saw Tongning in her dress, his eyes lit up. "Long Jie, you should go home." Long Jie winked at Tongning before reminding, "Be careful, this dress is custom-made and there is only one of it." Tongning understood what Long Jie meant as she looked at her helplessly. After Long Jie left, she stretched out her arms and wrapped them around Mo Ting's neck. "Don't listen to her nonsense." "But she seems to understand what I'm thinking," Mo Ting said seductively beside Tongning's ear. "Mrs. Mo?" Tongning's body couldn't help but feel numb. She placed her hands on her chest and put some distance between herself and the man. "Be serious." Mo Ting quietly unzipped Tongning's dress and placed a kiss on her neck. "I've missed you." Tongning did not say a word. She simply tilted her chin slightly, found Mo Ting's lips, and took the initiative to kiss him. Mo Ting didn't dare to forcefully kiss a 6-month pregnant woman or caress her recklessly. All he could do was restrain himself as he pushed her against the wall and held her hands in place. He then used his thin lips to slowly occupy the woman in his arms. "Ning, relax." Hearing Mo Ting's magnetic voice, Tongning opened her eyes and clung onto Mo Ting's body. This man, no matter what time it was, always exuded a mesmerizing aura that made people want to get closer to him, especially when his hot palms brushed across every inch of her skin. Tongning couldn't help but lift her chin, giving Mo Ting a hint. Chapter 586. Do you want it? Huh. Mo Ting lifted Tongning up in his arms and gently placed her on the bed. He then held her in place from the right side. Tongning opened her eyes and looked at Mo Ting seriously. Especially at a time like this, she did not hide her love and infatuation for Mo Ting. "I want it. I've always wanted it. I've always wanted it." Mo Ting gently brushed aside the hair behind Tongning's ear before he pulled open his shirt. Ignoring the buttons that were scattered all over the place, he straightened his muscular body. Even at a time like this, he still looked like a regal king. Tongning was still Tongning. Even though she was pregnant, it did not affect her perfection. In fact, it made her even more charming. As Tongning was pregnant, she couldn't make any big movements. So, their entwined bodies could only slowly grind against each other. "The dress? Am I not serious enough? How could you still be in the mood to think about the dress?" Huh. Over the past few days, Tang Xian had no idea that her whereabouts were being monitored by Mo Ting. The only thing she did not forget was fear. Especially after seeing Yilan and Yang Shi's fate, all she could think of was to hide herself well and not let Tongning find her. In reality, Tongning simply had to deal with her because of the awards ceremony. She got pregnant earlier than Tongning, so her stomach was rounder than Tongning's. Of course, her life wasn't as easy as she imagined. After all, she had lived a life of extravagance. A mere $2 million wasn't enough for her to live a lavish life. Even though she was hiding, she did not forget to eat and drink well. So, this created a lot of clues and conditions for Lu Che's search. At this moment, she was hiding on a secluded island. Of course, due to her extravagant spending, she had already moved out of a high-class hotel and into a commoner's residential area. As there was no guarantee of safety, she was constantly harassed by the local gangsters. But, compared to being found by Tongning and Mo Ting, she was obviously more willing to endure this precarious life. What was even more ridiculous was that she found a lot of fake money under the bed in her decent little nest. In order to make her life a little easier, she took those fake money and went to deceive the elderly uncles and aunties, because it was not easy to be discovered. However, not every time she did something like this, she would be lucky. This time, the bakery auntie's son was helping his mother guard the bakery. After receiving the money from Tang Xian, He looked down at the money and said, "This money is fake." "How is that possible?" Tang Xian asked guiltily. "I was wondering why my mom has been receiving fake money recently." "So it's you." The other party's skin was dark, and there was a hint of viciousness in his eyes. "You even scammed the belongings of an old man." "I didn't." Tang Xian denied. "You don't slander me." "Follow me to the police station." Hearing that it was the police station, Tang Xian panicked. She immediately said to the surrounding guests, "Help me. This man is trying to touch me." Although the people in the bakery did not make a move, they looked at the owner's son with disdain. As a result, Tang Xian managed to escape. However, the man pointed his finger at her. It was as if he was saying with his eyes, "This matter, we are not finished." Tang Xian was so scared that she quickly ran away. From then on, she no longer dared to buy anything from the bakery. But she couldn't give up on using so many fake money. So, she continued to change locations and scam different elderly people. Finally, someone found her living quarters. In fact, it wasn't just one person. Tang Xian was so scared that she did not dare to open the door. All she could do was curl up on the sofa until the man left. In fact, to prevent her from escaping, the man took turns guarding the door, regardless of day or night. "Stupid woman, if you have the guts to scam the elderly, why don't you come out? Don't think that just because you are pregnant, we can't do anything to you." Tang Xian was so scared that her body trembled. For a few days, she curled up on the sofa, not daring to move. In the end, news of the incident eventually reached Lu Che's ears. To ensure that the woman was safe and sound before Tongning came looking for her, Lu Che decided to compensate everyone and said in seriousness, "Don't worry, you will see the result you want. But not now. A woman like this should die early. She wouldn't even let the elderly off. She's completely heartless. You all need to teach her a lesson." Soon, Tang Xian's front door fell silent. After a while, no more knocking could be heard. Tang Xian thought the man was getting impatient. But she had no idea. Lu Che had taken care of everything, and an even bigger torture was waiting for her. Of course, she would tell him tomorrow night. In reality, deep down, Tang Xian felt that she was worse off than the elderly people. So, when she did what she did not feel the slightest bit guilty. Tongning found out about the incident the next morning. Of course, after hearing about it, she couldn't help but laugh. For some people, even if you placed them in hell, they would still be more shameless than the average ghost. Do you expect someone like this to feel shame? She doesn't even count as a person, Emo Ting replied coldly. But why do I feel like she would make a great subject for a film? Hearing Tongning's words, Emo Ting was suddenly reminded of something as he suddenly had a different idea. However, Tongning had no idea that her joke today had created yet another miracle in film history. After breakfast, Emo Ting accompanied Tongning to pick out a new dress. The one she wore the night before was completely crumpled up. Don't forget, today was the Fei Tian Awards. It was the biggest film ceremony of the year. Without exception, every award ceremony was a stage where everyone competed with each other. But the Fei Tian Awards gave everyone a different feeling. All the actors and actresses fought to keep a low profile because the judges of the Fei Tian Awards didn't like flashy events. It seemed, this way, the actors and actresses would have a higher chance of winning an award. Of course, this was just a form of psychological comfort. Strangely, the highlight of the year wasn't the Fei Tian Best Actor or Best Actress, it was the competition for the Best Newcomer Award. Of course, because of this war, the other candidates also became a hot search topic on the internet. The popularity of this award even made the actors and actresses secretly discuss it. This year's Best Newcomer Award has a lot of potential. It's never been this popular. Hey, who do you guys think will receive the award? It's hard to say. Everyone laughed. But no matter who receives the award, Tongning's appearance will be the climax. But if she doesn't receive the award, it will be a little awkward. I don't think it's her. Chapter 587. Tongning's frequent appearance on the hottest search rankings and her tough style of handling things made her seem like one of the most popular celebrities in the industry. She was obviously a capable actress, yet, Because she appeared on the hottest topic and because of a few random comments, she was reduced to a mere flower vase. She had the ability. This was something that everyone in the industry recognized. But this didn't stop her from looking like she had yet to settle down. Compared to the celebrities that relied on hype, there was still a clear line of difference. The awards ceremony was held at 7 p.m. at a 5-star hotel. 6 p.m. was the time for the celebrities to walk the red carpet. As an annual film festival, the awards ceremony naturally attracted the attention of the audience and the media. It was obviously cold outside, but the male and female celebrities who had already stepped onto the red carpet were wearing thin clothing. They had to maintain an impeccable smile on their faces, especially when they were faced with a dense crowd of cameras. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes. The two sides of the red carpet were filled with black cameras. Although the scale of the Feition Awards was the largest, the process was pretty much the same. As they were nominated, Lin Shang and Bai Chendong, who had previously worked with Tongning, also attended the ceremony. As weirdos that focused on acting, the two were naturally regulars at the Feition Awards. At the same time, as a guest presenter, Zhehao was also invited to the Feition Awards. So, apart from the awards ceremony that night, Tongning was also excited to see a lot of old friends. It didn't take long before Mo Ting's car stopped at one end of the red carpet. A lot of the media recognized the car, so they were naturally excited. Some even stood up and started snapping pictures of the car. At this time, Mo Ting stepped out of the car dressed in a dark blue retro suit. Tongning, dressed in a white dress, appeared in front of everyone. This was her first public appearance since she was pregnant. The deep V design of the white dress had already revealed her curvaceous figure, and the light blue embroidery of the magnolia flowers on her body made her elegant and refined aura even more vivid and exquisite. In order to prevent Tongning from catching a cold, Mo Ting specially covered her in a white sleeveless jacket and carried out his duties as her personal manager. However, Mo Ting tried his best to avoid the camera. He appeared considerate and natural. If it was someone else, their concern would seem fake. She had always been respectful and grateful towards a man's care. After all, no one was right to be nice to her. This was something she had always known deep down. Tongning, look here. Tongning, look over here. Look over here. Under Mo Ting's protection, Tongning arrived in front of the signature wall. At this time, the media excitedly invited Tongning to take photos with them for publicity. Her popularity had even surpassed the current nominees for Best Actor and Best Actress. The host held the couple back. Now that they were at the climax of the show, he was not going to let them off so easily. So, his questions were more tricky. Tongning, regarding tonight's awards ceremony, who do you think will receive the Best Newcomer Award? Don't use official language with me. You have to tell me the truth. Tongning had always been good at PR. This was something everyone knew. Plus, her EQ had always been famous in the industry. If I answer this question seriously, will I be exempted from answering the next question? Tongning asked in a half-joking manner. Okay, but you need to answer this question properly. Tongning chuckled as she turned around and glanced at Mo Ting. Mo Ting never worried that Tongning would make a mistake with her answers. So, he simply looked at her seriously and did not say anything else. If I say that I don't want to receive an award, then I must be lying. After all, this is the best way to prove myself as an actor. But, as for who will receive an award, I don't think I can even be considered an official actor. So, I don't think I can say anything professional. So, I trust the judge's decision. I hope it's me. But, if it's not me, then it simply means I'm not as good as someone else. It's a simple truth. As expected, the host smiled. He was completely impressed by Tongning's Tai Chi skills. Tongning's words seemed to contain a lot of truth and lies. But what she said was as good as nothing. Of course, the host did not make things difficult for the pregnant woman. After all, Tongning was currently pregnant. If something were to happen to her, she wouldn't be able to bear the responsibility. So, after taking photos with the reporters, Tongning was led into the ceremony hall. As she looked at the Feition Awards little golden phoenix on the big screen, Tongning felt a little emotional. Don't be nervous. Mo Ting could feel the cold sweat on Tongning's palms, so he gently pinched the back of her hand. If it wasn't me, what would have happened? Tongning asked as she tilted her head. I don't like things that are out of my control. Your opponents aren't weak. Do you think it's embarrassing to lose to them? Ting gestured for her to look at the empty seats on her left. We've all tried our best. Especially you. Tongning knew that Ting had already gotten rid of all external obstacles and had done enough. If he wanted to make a move internally, it wasn't impossible. But Ting understood that Tongning would never want him to do that. In that case, let's wait for the result together. It didn't take long before the other actors entered the hall. Bai Chendong and Lin Sheng, naturally, got the best seats. This was the difference between Tongning and the two of them. The host of the awards ceremony was the famous variety artist, Gu Xingyun. He was straightforward, handsome, and had a high level of prestige. It seemed, this man had been given every opportunity to host the Fei Tian Awards. Even after watching him for so many years, not many people were fed up with him. Today, our venue is amazing. Chendong brought along his assistant and Tongning brought along her personal manager. Each is more impressive than the last. They can't neglect both their career and love at the same time. I'm so envious of them. Most importantly, Tongning and President Mo are here as a family of 3 to support the Fei Tian Awards. Gu, that's not right of you. What if it's a family of 4? The female host beside him couldn't help but laugh. If that's the case, then it would be even more amazing. Our Tongning needs to do her best. For the sake of protecting our baby, Tongning is willing to retreat from the industry. The heavens will definitely give her the best arrangements and protection. Gu Xingyun spoke these words with sincerity. This was the reason why the audience didn't dislike him. Whenever he spoke, his blessings always came from the bottom of his heart. Okay, let's not waste any more time. I'm sure everyone can't wait to reveal the Fei Tian Awards. Chapter 588. Now, let us welcome the winner of the Academy Award for Best Screenplay, the most valuable director in the country, Mr. Chen Feng. He will come on stage to give us a speech and present the first award of the Fei Tian Awards. Let us welcome him. As the audience applauded, an old man with a head full of hair and a pair of black-rimmed glasses walked onto the glittering stage. As he faced the microphone, he clasped his hands together and spoke with a powerful voice. I've said too much. This time, I won't say too much. I'll just say one thing that I find very interesting. The competition for this year's Best Newcomer Award is extremely intense. In fact, it's even more popular than the other awards that are being presented tonight. This is the first time something like this has happened at the Fei Tian Awards. So, I went to watch the films of the nominees. Yu Rong's Glory, Dai Ziwen's The Old Tribe, Wang Siwen's Green-Blooded Bullet, and of course, Tongning's W.H., as well as the recently removed Yang Shi's film. After watching these films, I personally liked one of them. Of course, I won't mention the name of the film for now. All I want to say is, because of this film, I realized that there are still people who are willing to give their souls to the acting industry. That's why I respect this actress. Her efforts are no less than those of us who have spent our entire lives in the film industry. That's all I have to say. I will now announce the winner of the 37th Annual Fei Tian Awards for Best Supporting Actress. This will be the first award to be presented tonight. Everyone starts off as a supporting actor, including the director and screenwriter. I hope that the winner of today's Best Supporting Actress will one day become the Best Actress. Please look at the final results on the big screen. As soon as Mr. Chen Feng finished speaking, the screen behind him began to display the list of nominees for the Best Supporting Actress. Of course, the spotlight was focused on the 5 nominees. After a while, the spotlight finally focused on one person. At this time, the name of the Best Supporting Actress was announced on the big screen. During this time, Tongning caught a glimpse of a person. Although she had only met this person once, he had left a deep impression on her. Zhang Qingping, the so-called president of the Film Association, a national first-class actor and director, was standing diagonally to her with a dignified air. Although the incident had happened a long time ago, Han Yufan's mother and her husband, Director Zhang, had used this old man to humiliate her. At that time, Ting had even argued with him. At that time, Mother Han had mentioned that this old man was a regular judge for the Fei Tian Awards. I've forgotten about this for a long time. This circle is really small. What's wrong? Emoting noticed something was wrong with Tongning and immediately asked. Tongning gestured to Emoting with her chin. Emoting immediately understood what she meant. I almost forgot that I offended such a person. If only I had known. It's okay. You didn't do anything wrong at the time. If he insists on mixing his personal grudges with the award, then I won't accept it. Emoting did not say anything else. He simply stretched out his hand and tousled Tongning's hair. Next up, let's welcome our guest presenter. Normally, after the Best Supporting Actor award, the Best Newcomer award would be announced. After all, compared to the other important awards, the Best Newcomer award wasn't much. It was simply there to encourage newcomers, because newcomers didn't always win the Best Actor and Actress award. But this year's awards were a little strange. The organizers had actually moved the Best Newcomer award to a later date. This made the guests sigh. It seemed the Fei Tian awards had changed with the times. They now knew how to create a gimmick. Of course, this also meant that everyone knew how intense the competition for the Best Newcomer award was and how much it was worth watching. Next up, we will be presenting the Most Promising Director award. I would also like to thank all the young people that have contributed to the film industry. Because of you, we, the older generation, can see hope and feel comforted. The winner is, please take a look at the big screen. Nzaheo from WH. Hearing Nzaheo's name, even he was a little confused. After all, Nzaheo had not received any notice. He had originally arrived as a guest presenting the award. He never expected to receive such a pleasant surprise. Tongning witnessed how badly Nzaheo had been hurt by Chung Tian and how he had changed from a manager to a director. While filming WH, Nzaheo's willingness to endure hardships was also an important pillar of support for Tongning and Bei Chendong to continue working on WH. Now that Nzaheo had received an award, Tongning was naturally happy for her friend. Ting, Nzaheo has received an award. Tongning revealed a smile. Tongning revealed a smile. This smile made Emoting feel refreshed. It had been a long time since he had seen such a simple and pure smile from Tongning. She was simply happy for her friend that he had received an award. That was all. He will receive even more awards in the future, Emoting said in seriousness as he watched Nzaheo walk up to the stage. Tongning nodded her head before she listened attentively to Nzaheo's acceptance speech. I am very surprised, Nzaheo said. This was the first thing that Nzaheo said. I never imagined that I would receive an award again. WH was my first film and, of course, the beginning of my career as a director. Here, I would like to thank Tongning, the first person I would like to thank. I would like to thank her for not saying or asking any questions. For the sake of acting in this film, she almost went to heaven or hell. She is a friend that I have always respected. Secondly, I would like to thank Bei Chendong. Of course, I am referring to the fact that he joined the film for free. Because of the existence of these two actors, I deeply understand what it feels like to have flesh and blood in a movie. Everyone in my team is of one mind, so I won't say too many words of thanks. I simply have one more thing to say. With regards to Tongning, I hope everyone can treat her well. She is a good person and a very capable person. However, I also know that she has always been standing in the wind and rain, facing damage and attacks at all times. Here, I, Nzaheo, only have one thing to say. Tongning and I will be good friends for the rest of our lives. From now on, no matter what happens, I will unconditionally stand by her side. So, Tongning, good luck. Of course, I know everyone is waiting to receive the Best Newcomer award. So, I won't delay any longer and will return the stage to the host. After speaking, Nzaheo placed a kiss on the trophy. Chapter 589. The Best Newcomer Award. How many people, both inside and outside the venue, were waiting to see the drama of this award? Next up, we will be presenting the Fei Tian Award's Best Newcomer Award. Let's welcome our guest presenters, the chairman of the Film Association, a top director and actor, Mr. Zhang Qingping, and the CEO of Time Media, Ms. Rong Xiuhua, to the stage. Hearing the loud applause from the audience and seeing the two most important actors on stage, many people revealed meaningful smiles. Even though the newcomers had a lot of support, they shouldn't lose sight of one thing and allow the important Best Actor and Best Actress awards to be used as a foil for the Best Newcomer award. Mr. Zhang is a veteran of the film industry. Ms. Rong Xiuhua applauded. Ms. Rong has also created many miracles in the film industry. The old man replied with a smile. The old man replied with a faint smile. But speaking of which, the current film market is really different from that of our time. Why are you sighing like this? There are fewer and fewer people acting and more people flirting. There are fewer and fewer people telling stories and more people fooling the audience. Cheap special effects are all over the place, but the box office continues to reach new highs. I'm getting more and more confused about the aesthetics of this era. Perhaps I'm getting old. The old man replied loudly with a hint of ridicule. Take this Best Newcomer award, for example. Although newcomers are worthy of praise, shouldn't the public focus their attention on those that have dedicated their entire lives to acting? I'm especially disgusted by those artists who can't survive in other industries and turn to acting. Being an actor is indeed a lucrative career, but it also lowers the audience's standards of beauty. It's not good for the healthy development of the industry. Mr. Zhang is certainly straightforward. Ms. Rong Xiuhua replied awkwardly. That was because his words were indeed too targeted. All he had done was mention Tangning's name. The older generation had great achievements, but they were also arrogant and looked down on the current market. Not to mention, Tangning was an actress who had only started out in the industry half the time. Let's not talk too much. Let's get to the awards. Over the years, I've never given out an award as low as this one. Zhang Qingping's words were unforgiving. So, he naturally attracted a lot of hatred from within the industry. The winner of the 37th Annual Fei Tian Best Newcomer Award is, the spotlight suddenly focused on Tangning and the other candidates. At this moment, everyone held their breath and focused on the screen in the center of the podium. Tangning was extremely nervous. So, she subconsciously held onto Imo Ting's hand tightly. Imo Ting's heart ached as he looked at Tangning. He couldn't help but stroke the back of her hand comfortingly. Tangning from WH. Seeing this answer, everyone's emotions became somewhat complicated. They felt that it was within their expectations, but at the same time, they felt that it was unexpected. At this moment, Tangning's emotions were a little complicated. She knew, in the eyes of outsiders, she didn't deserve this award. Otherwise, Zhang Qingping wouldn't have said something like this. Because they understood this, everyone looked at Tangning with deep meaning as she stood up from her seat. Of course, as her husband, Imo Ting also stood up and led Tangning down the stage. Step by step, they made their way to the podium. Zhang Qingping was too lazy to give Tangning an award, so the entire process was handled by Rong Xiuhua. As expected, Tangning received the little golden phoenix. But, Tangning, please share your thoughts. Hearing the host's invitation, Tangning walked over to the microphone. After looking around at the audience, she finally said, Firstly, I have a few words to say to Mr. Zhang Qingping. After speaking, Tangning leaned to the side and placed the little golden phoenix on the floor. If Mr. Zhang's words represent the views of the older generation of filmmakers, then I can only say that I feel sorry for it. The older generation are indeed the founders and pioneers of the film industry, but they should not be the representatives of arrogance and prejudice. Every generation has its own mark. Perhaps in Mr. Zhang's eyes, I am not good. But, in the eyes of your seniors, are you perfect? I have indeed changed from a model to an actress. But, I'm sorry. Firstly, I don't lack money. Secondly, the amount of effort I put in is the same as everyone else, including the great actors you speak of. Don't tell me hard work and effort in your eyes. Are there any differences? Let me give you a simple example. If an artist suddenly becomes an engineer, does that mean they are disloyal to the arts or architecture industry? I'm sorry, but this is our freedom of choice. You have indeed made a lot of contributions to the film industry, and no one can replace your contributions. But, Mr. Zhang, please accept your old age. Times are changing, and we need to replace them. In this world, the most important thing is the existence of an objective reality. If the film industry really defies objective reality, then it should be heading towards destruction. If not, how could it be as prosperous as it is today? Could it be that the younger generation are all wrong and you are the only one that is right? Plus, we are indeed newcomers today. In your eyes, we are the lowest level of existence. But didn't everyone here, including you, start from scratch and climb to the top? By looking down on us, you are simply denying your own past. After hearing Tongning's words, everyone was shocked. Of course, they were shocked because she dared to speak her mind. But deep down, they were secretly pleased. Towards an older generation that looked down on newcomers, this was how she should be criticized in front of the audience. Zhang Qingping wanted to refute Tongning, but as the words reached the tip of his tongue, he couldn't find the words. All he could do was open his eyes wide as the veins on his forehead bulged. As a senior, your attitude towards the younger generation is neither encouragement nor help. You have already lost the strength of the older generation. So, how could you humiliate a junior in front of so many people? Even primary school textbooks don't teach in this way. What do you think, Mr. Zhang? In other words, Tongning was saying that he was worse than a primary school student. As soon as these words were spoken, time stood still. But a few seconds later, the venue erupted into a thunderous applause. Tongning had spoken the thoughts of many people. Chapter 590. Seeing Zhang Qingping leave the stage angrily, Tongning finally turned around and looked at everyone. The reason why I placed the Fei Tian Awards next to my feet is because I know a lot of people don't think I deserve to receive this award. I'm sorry, but if I want to receive an award, then I need to make sure everyone is convinced. I know I've attracted a lot of criticism and attracted a lot of news, but I still remember that I am an actress. When it comes to film, I have to work hard. Today, I'm going to give the host a chance to make things difficult for me. You can give me any question you want, and I will perform on the spot. If everyone feels that my acting has problems and doesn't pass, I will immediately give up on the Fei Tian Awards and I will never act again. After hearing Tongning's words, everyone was shocked. Tongning was going to perform on the spot? Did she know where she was? All the titans of the film industry were here. Wasn't she afraid of embarrassing herself? Plus, the stakes were so high. She was going to give up on the Fei Tian Awards. Of course, there were also plenty of people that admired Tongning's courage. After all, if they were in Tongning's shoes, they would have already received an award. Who cared what the judges thought? It was already her glory. Who would want to mess around? But Tongning was not willing to admit defeat. This segment was not a rehearsal, nor could it be rehearsed in advance. But, seeing Tongning's reaction, the host was more than willing to give her a chance to prove herself. After all, he had also fought his way to this point and had experienced plenty of darkness. So, he was more than willing to believe in the determination and strength of the young. Since that's the case, have you seen the film Insanity? This Oscar-winning film is a milestone in the field of crime films. And the female lead, Olga, was extremely famous. She was a schizophrenic, yet she was held hostage by the male lead. She negotiated with him the entire time and even acted as his psychological coach. The most interesting part of the film was Olga's second personality. She was a psycho that was even scarier than the male lead. On one hand, she tried to save the male lead, but on the other hand, she helped him commit murder. One of the most classic scenes was when Olga's first personality suspected that the male lead had an accomplice, but she couldn't find out who it was. In the end, through various clues, she realized it was herself. Yes, Tongning nodded her head as she recalled the film. Not only had she seen it before, she had even imitated Olga in WH because she wanted to experience Bai Qindong's character. Then, do you still remember the scene where Olga's second personality fainted after killing someone, and when she woke up, she searched everywhere for the murderer? Of course, Tongning nodded. In fact, the movie was so famous that Bainzi, who played the role of Olga, suffered from split personality disorder and was still in the hospital to this day. Most of the people present had seen the film before. So, the scene that Gu Xingyun described left a deep impression on them. Was Tongning going to act in that scene? This was simply an impossible task. It was too difficult. Bainzi was going crazy. One could imagine how engrossed she was when she was acting in this movie. Tongning. Would it really work? The scene was set in an underground garage with ventilation holes. At the time, Olga was sleeping in a car with a male driver. After the driver woke up, he tried to rape Olga. But, at that time, Olga was hit in the head and passed out. Her second personality awakened, and she sliced the man into pieces without spilling a single drop of blood. By the time Olga woke up, the garage door was already open, but there was a corpse beside her. Olga searched everywhere for the murderer. But, when she went to check the surveillance footage, she discovered that no one had entered the garage. Olga began to realize what was going on. She began to search for clues on the corpse. So, Tongning was going to act out the expression on her face after seeing the surveillance footage. There were no props, no help, just an empty stage. At first, Tongning lowered her head like she was thinking of something. Then, she suddenly lifted her head. At this moment, everyone was shocked, because the look in her eyes was like she had discovered something unknown, or like a demon with an axe had suddenly appeared behind her. The chilling look in her eyes was perfectly executed without any need for any lines. Everyone was captivated by the look in her eyes. It was like they were watching a live version of insanity. Afterwards, Tongning suddenly turned around as if she had thought of something. With her back facing the audience, she took a few steps before turning back around. She scratched her head in disbelief at her own speculations. How could there be ghosts in this world? However, a few seconds later, her expression suddenly sank into a gloomy one. That expression made one shudder in fear. Because no one had been to the underground parking lot, she suspected that something supernatural had happened in this world, and that a ghost had appeared to kill people. But moments later, she suddenly started to think about why her arms were sore, and why there were black cloth scraps on her fingernails. She quickly ran back to the garage and searched around the corpse. Finally, she found the black glove. She was so shocked that she screamed and threw the glove far away. Afterwards, Tongning calmly stood up from the stage. As she was pregnant, she couldn't perform a complicated performance, so she had no choice but to give up. But the audience were not happy with the sudden end of the performance. Everyone was still waiting for the plot to continue, but the performance ended just like that. That's right, it was over. In reality, even if it was a classic film, even if it had a great performance, there were still other ways to express it. Tongning had used Bayenzi's foundation to add a lot of her own understanding and actions. She wanted to make Olga more lively, more developed, and closer to reality. The award ceremony was silent for a long time. Only after a long time did they hear applause from below the stage. At this moment, Tongning looked at the audience below the stage, looked at the host on stage, and glanced at Zhang Qingping. She quietly retrieved the little phoenix in her hands and raised it up high. With Emoting's support, she left the stage. This slap was too ruthless and too sudden. Tongning had never been afraid to prove herself. She believed in her own abilities. She had performed a classic on the spot and even surpassed it. Tongning had used her actions to prove to everyone that she deserved this award. Would anyone still doubt her qualifications? Unless she could guarantee that she could do better than Tongning. But who had the confidence to do so? Chapter 591. It didn't take long before the video of Tongning's audition went viral online. As a result, her acting skills and capabilities were further acknowledged by the public. Who else would question her right to receive the Best Newcomer award? Zhang Qingping and the other old fogies were slapped across the face by Tongning. In all these years, she was the first newcomer in the industry that dared to stand on the Fei Tian Awards stage and publicly refute a respected senior. She was also the first actress that dared to openly audition in front of so many important actors. Her courage, her pride, and her backbone made everyone in the hall feel envious and impressed. This method of face slapping was extremely passionate and shocking. The stubborn old fogies in the industry should have been taught a lesson a long time ago. Tongning did something that made everyone happy today. I admire her. What if she tries to steal Best Actress from you? With her acting, she will receive the award sooner or later. There's no need for her to steal it from me. This was a conversation between the people in the venue. Afterwards, Gu Xingyun returned to Tongning's original position and concluded, I personally love insanity. So, when Tongning asked me to make things difficult for her, this was the name that came out of my mouth. Of course, I was well aware that this film wasn't easy to act out and would drive people crazy. So, I was truly making things difficult for Tongning. I never expected her to respond in such a serious manner. But, I'm sure everyone here has seen that Tongning's acting is the best I've ever seen out of all the versions of Insanity, including the stage plays. In fact, she even managed to do a few things that Olga couldn't do in the original. This is too amazing. I really want to give Tongning a round of applause from the bottom of my heart. She truly deserves this award. After Gu Xingyun gave his speech, he looked down at the audience. At this time, Qin Feng, who had previously claimed to have watched the films, suddenly stood up from the first row of the VIP seats and received the microphone from Gu Xingyun. He smiled and said, Originally, I didn't want to waste everyone's time. After all, there are still a lot of things to do later on. But, since Tongning has already proven herself, I think there are a few things I want to say. After saying that, the old man turned around and bowed deeply to the audience before he continued speaking. The old man's back was as straight as a towering tree from beginning to end. I told you. I watched all of them, and I especially liked one of them. I'm sure you guys can guess what it is. That's right. It's WH. It's not because I like disaster films, nor is it because Bai Chendong is in it. It's because I see Tongning's loyalty to the characters in the film. Afterwards, I did a lot of research on Tongning and found out that before she became an actress, she was already an international supermodel. She received the Best Contribution Award, triggered the Oriental trend, changed the American sense of beauty, and won countless international awards. In the modeling industry, she is a legend. But she decided to become an actress. She knew where she stood, so she continued to work hard. I couldn't understand why, every time she passed a stage, there were so many people that wanted to embarrass her and obstruct her path. She was obviously talented and had a bright future, so why did she have to suffer so much? Later on, I finally understood. The reason why Tongning was plotted against and framed was because of her talent. At such a young age, she had already reached a level that not many people could reach. WH does have its flaws, but it still isn't Tongning's true ability. After watching 80% of the film, I can see that Tongning's acting is smooth and natural. Plus, based on the trailer, it was obvious that Tongning had suffered quite a bit because of this film. But she never asked Hai Rui to release any press releases about it. From start to finish, there was practically no hype. She is neither servile nor overbearing and keeps a low profile. Why can't she receive the respect she deserves? Today, I, Qin Feng, would like to announce that as long as I have a good resource in my hands, the only person I will consider will be Tongning. In fact, this applies to international films. As for those that aren't as good as Tongning and refuse to improve, they can continue to stay where they are. Tongning is a brave person. No matter how much you try to stop her, you will not be able to stop her from becoming a top-notch actress. If you don't believe me, let's give it a try. As for why Tongning received the award, the Fei Tian Awards Committee will soon announce the reason for their decision. So, I will only say one thing, Tongning. You can do your best. Don't bother with the gossip, especially those that like to differentiate between the rich and the poor. Don't bother with their shameless thoughts of dragging you down with them. This is ridiculous. Everyone knew that Qin Feng was a proud person. Over the years, he had never publicly supported anyone because there were many things that he disliked about the industry. But, because he had received a lot of Western education, he had a high EQ. So, even if he wasn't used to it, he wouldn't go around criticizing others. So, even though the old man had never scolded anyone, he had never truly praised anyone either. Yet, today, he actually broke his usual routine and praised Tongning in front of so many people and at such a big event. He even invited her to act in a film. What was this? Glory? As for Tongning, after hearing the old man's words, she did not immediately try to curry favor with him. Her expression remained indifferent, calm, and unaffected. This was what old man Qin Feng liked the most about her. Even if I were to personally act in Qin Feng's role, I wouldn't necessarily be able to secure it. Wifey, you've earned again. Ting laughed beside Ning's ear. Aren't you going to thank the old man? Ning did not say a word. Her attitude was gentle and humble as she stood up and bowed to the old man to show her gratitude. Everyone else was here to receive an award. Yet, not only did Ning have to receive an award, she also had to win the favor of a good director and a role that countless people fought over. As for Zhang Qingping, he had a high status in the industry. But ever since he became a top-notch director and actor, he no longer had any projects. On the other hand, Chen Feng continued to improve. So, everyone respected Chen Feng even more. Now that Chen Feng had stepped out to mock Zhang Qingping, it was obvious that his joke had gotten out of hand. The younger generation would surpass the older. This was the main theme of the awards ceremony. Of course, in order not to take up too much of everyone's time, Ning directly asked Gu Xingyun to continue presenting the awards. At this moment, both inside and outside the venue, everyone was talking about Ning. But, as the center of attention, she was calmer than anyone else and more careful than anyone else. On her face, only one word was written. I want to keep a low profile. Chapter 592. The entire Fei Tian Awards was like a meet and greet session for Ning. No matter where she went, her name could be heard. Afterwards, the Fei Tian Awards presented the Best Actor and Best Actress winners. As the two went on stage to give their acceptance speeches, Gu Xingyun teased, "Do you guys feel bad that Ning stole the limelight?" No. The winner of the Best Actress laughed as she held onto her trophy. I admire her courage. She said what most of us were too afraid to say. That's why I support her. As for the Best Actor, he laughed. I almost wanted to give her the trophy in my hand. But I never thought she had the ability to receive it. In reality, there was a clear difference between those that liked Ning and those that hated her. Those who liked her could naturally see her low-key side, her hard work and high EQ. As for those who didn't like her, it was just like how no matter how wonderful a movie was, there would always be an audience that couldn't please them. They could always find the flaws that made them not know whether to laugh or cry. In reality, the netizens had already been taught a lesson by Ning too many times. So, whether it was Ning's character or acting, they all had their own answer. But Ning didn't have a lot of productions, so all she could do was rely on her own ability to convince more and more people. After the awards ceremony ended, all the celebrities began to leave the hotel. At this time, Zaheo, who was holding onto his trophy, and an impatient Bei Chendong were standing in front of their seats and looking at Ning. Congratulations, Ning. Congratulations to you too. Ning raised the trophy in her hand at Zaheo. Ningjia. Han Shiner, who hadn't seen her in a long time, leapt across the rows of red chairs and pounced into Ning's arms. But before she could touch Ning's dress, a long arm pulled her back. She is currently pregnant. If you pounce on her too hard and hurt the baby, the man sitting opposite you will eat you alive, Bei Chendong warned. Han Shiner glanced at Ning and then looked at Ting, who had extended his hand. Ever since Ning became pregnant, although Ting had been taking care of her closely, he had become more and more unpredictable. It's fine, Ning quickly replied. Meanwhile, Ting glared at Bei Chendong coldly. He was obviously the one who was jealous of both men and women, yet he was blaming the baby in Ning's stomach. Ningjia, you are amazing. Unfortunately, Stupid didn't win an award. President Mo is obviously so capable. Stupid is participating in an international awards competition, Ting replied calmly. This was because he had not applied for any awards for Stupid. His motive was simple. He didn't want Ning and Zaheo's chances of winning an award. As a married couple, Ning naturally understood Ting's intention. So, she simply wrapped her arms tightly around Ting's waist. At this moment, Ting alone was enough. It's okay, Ningjia, let's go celebrate tonight. However, just as Han Shiner finished her sentence, Bei Chendong suddenly wrapped his arm around her neck and pulled her around. We still need to return to the set. What's there to celebrate? To celebrate my night scenes? Han Shiner continued to be dragged away by him. Actually, everyone could tell that he was simply jealous. Why do I feel bad seeing Shiner being bullied by him? And Zaheo scratched his ear as a smile appeared on his face. You're wrong. Bei Chendong is the king of jealousy. He treats Shiner extremely well, even if he doesn't say it. And Zaheo was simply joking. Just as he was about to leave with Tongning, a familiar figure suddenly appeared from behind Tongning. It was a familiar face, Lan Shi. The current Lan Shi seemed to have lost her edge. As she approached them, she no longer had the arrogant aura she once had. However, when Zaheo saw her, he couldn't help but sigh. After all, Yun Xian's death was something he would never be able to forget. Congratulations, Zaheo. I never expected that instead of being a top manager, you would also be a director. What a surprise. And Zaheo looked at Lan Shi's outstretched hand, but he did not shake it. Lan Shi's lips curved upwards in self-mockery. She did not force the issue as she retracted her hand and said to Tongning, as for you, Tongning, I never expected you to become an actress. In fact, I never expected you to be so successful. I've watched Stupid and WH. They were both amazing. I really regret not keeping you here in the past. But even if the past hadn't happened, I still wouldn't have been able to keep you here, because Lan Shi glanced at Mo Ting, who was standing behind Tongning. At least, we wouldn't be as embarrassed as we are now. Congratulations. Thank you, Tongning replied politely. Afterwards, she turned to Mo Ting and Zaheo and said, let's go. Although the industry had always supported the strong and trampled on the weak, it had already happened a long time ago. So, there was no need for Tongning to be so harsh. I hope you take care of yourself from now on. In this world, there will definitely be another Tongning. When that time comes, you just need to treat her well. Lan Shi gave a gentle smile and Tongning did the same. Translator, Uni Editor. Uni the hospital was currently bustling with activity. It seemed everyone was watching the live broadcast of the Fei Tian Awards. Tang Jingxian laid on the hospital bed and couldn't help but sigh. Sister 3 was born to act her entire life. What do you mean by Sister 3 was born to act? What can't she do? That's because once she sets her mind on something, she will move forward bravely and never look back, Su Qingyan said as she sat beside him. Now that I think about it, I remember seeing your sister when we were young. At that time, she hadn't even left the Tang family yet. Look at how domineering your sister is. How come when it comes to you, you always get hurt because of a woman? I think it's worth it. Tang Jingxian laughed. Is there something wrong with your brain? For a woman like that? As if it's worth it. After hearing Su Qingyan's words, Tang Jingxian let out a laugh. You better remember everything you've said during this period of time. Do you think I'm afraid of you? It's worth it. If I say it's worth it, then it's worth it. Su Qingyan glared at Tang Jingxian and shook her head in disappointment. She then bent over and started peeling an apple. I can't be bothered with you. At this time, Song Yinshu suddenly appeared in the hospital room. Su Qingyan lifted her head and stood up to leave. But Tang Jingxian held her back and gestured for her to be quiet. You're here again. As your ex-manager, this is my last bit of friendship. I heard that I got hurt because of you. How come I didn't know about this? Tang Jingxian lifted his head and questioned Song Yinshu. Chapter 593. As soon as Su Qingyan heard this, she froze. What did he mean? Didn't they say that Tang Jingxian got hurt because of Song Yinshu? Song Yinshu lowered her head and laughed as her shoulders trembled uncontrollably. She then lifted her head and replied, I was just joking. How could someone believe me? Did Miss Su really think so? According to Miss Su's intelligence, I don't think you would believe everything that someone says. Are you really going to stay by Jingshuan's side like this? That is between the two of us, Tang Jingxian replied coldly. Don't tell me, you still haven't told her how you got hurt? Song Yinshu looked at Su Qingyan with ridicule. Do you want me to tell her? What do you mean by that? Su Qingyan immediately stood up with a serious look on her face. What do I mean? What I mean is, the person that hurt Tang Jingxian was your jerk of a father, Song Yinshu replied. You stabbed him and injured him. Yet, he ran out to buy you something even though he was injured. Some things are laughable. Tang Jingxian, it seems you are destined to not be understood by women. No matter what you do, it's a waste of energy. After hearing Song Yinshu's words, Su Qingyan froze. As she thought back to what Tang Jingxian had just said, she suddenly realized that the person that Tang Jingxian had been talking about was her. It was her, and not Song Yinshu. What, are you surprised? Song Yinshu sneered as her voice turned colder. Su Qingyan, if you truly cared about Jingxian, I would not be here. Unfortunately, you don't. The way you treat your violent father, don't you have the slightest sense of safety? If Jingxian didn't follow you and protect you, you would probably be a corpse by now. How close could your relationship be? To be honest, it's not convincing at all. You are the old me. You don't care about his concern at all, Song Yinshu said as she pointed to Tang Jingxian. Song Yinshu said as she pointed to Tang Jingxian. She then turned to look at Tang Jingxian. So, I don't see how you are worth it. Su Qingyan was suddenly speechless because of Song Yinshu's words. Even though Song Yinshu had a bad heart, every word she said hit the nail on the head. Are you admitting it? You and I are the same. We both have a terrible impression of the person lying on the ground. That's enough. Tang Jingxian interrupted in seriousness. I know you don't want to see me. Song Yinshu suddenly became emotional. But, Tang Jingxian, you need to be fair. If my opponent is also an ungrateful person, then why won't you choose to be with me? At least, I can understand you now. At this moment, Tang Jingxian chose to remain silent. After a long time, he murmured, I did all of this willingly. Sometimes, you're really pitiful when you think about it. Tang Jingxian, you really won't be able to meet someone who loves you and who loves you back. Chapter 594. Tang Jingxian once again arrived at Su Core with his injuries. As soon as he entered the front desk, the receptionist was stunned. I'm looking for Director Su. Has she returned? Director Su is currently in a meeting, the receptionist said as she pointed to the elevator. Mr. Tang, why don't you wait for a moment? Let me make a phone call to the CEO's office. No need, just bring me up. I will wait for her in the office. Based on my relationship with her, is there anything you need to worry about? Tang Jingxian asked gently and patiently. The receptionist froze for a few seconds like she was struggling internally. A moment later, she nodded her head. Okay then, Mr. Tang, please follow me. Tang Jingxian was worried that Su Qingyan would act recklessly. But, to his surprise, as he entered the office, Su Qingyan was in the middle of a serious discussion with a few police officers. Although Hai Rui had already handled the matter in secret, Su Qingyan still officially reported it to the police. Are you crazy? You're injured. As soon as Su Qingyan saw Tang Jingxian, she immediately helped him sit down on the sofa. I was worried that after you found Su Jinqing, you would challenge him to a duel. Didn't I already call the police? Su Qingyan glared at him before she called for her secretary. I'll get her to take you back to the hospital. I'm fine. Even if I go to the hospital, I'll just lie down and not move around. You guys can continue talking. Tang Jingxian had no intention of moving. After all, Su Qingyan's office was luxuriously decorated and much more comfortable than the hospital. Su Qingyan couldn't do anything to him. All she could do was sigh and instruct her secretary to take care of Tang Jingxian before she returned to the police officers. Su Jinqing doesn't have a good relationship with my grandfather, so there's no way he would go back and ask for help. As for the names of his friends, I've already written them down. Just a moment ago, I called for a meeting and released a smokescreen to make Su Jinqing think that the Su household is still under his name. So, he will definitely find someone to confirm it or contact the staff of Su Core. After the meeting ended, I received a phone call from each of these people. I suspect one of them tipped him off. Send someone to keep an eye on these people. I'm sure they will find something. When Su Qingyan was dealing with important matters, she actually looked like a domineering CEO. She did things swiftly and decisively, clean and efficient. Thank you, Miss Su, for providing us with this information. You have done us a great favor. The police officer thanked Su Qingyan. Now that we're done talking about business, there's something private I want to talk about. How did you do it? How did you hide such a big thing from me, Su Jinqing's biological daughter? Even if we don't have a good relationship, I'm still the person who understands him the most in this world. Have you never thought of asking for my help? The police couldn't help but look at Tang Jingxian. We were entrusted by someone who knew that Miss Su was actually a heroine. The police couldn't help but laugh. All right, let's call it a day. Let's keep in touch. After speaking, the police left the office. Meanwhile, Su Qingyin crossed her arms and looked at Tang Jingxian. In your eyes, am I so weak that I can only endure being bullied? At the very least, you couldn't resist Yilan in the past. But my abilities don't lose to others. Su Qingyin rubbed her neck. After being provoked by Tang Jingshuan's straightforward words, she looked a little embarrassed. Let's go. I'll take you back to the hospital. Can't you stop running around? After witnessing Chairman Su's abilities, I naturally won't run around. Tang Jingxian laughed. You go do what you need to do. I'll return to the hospital on my own. Don't talk nonsense. Listen to me. After speaking, Su Qingyin walked over and helped Tang Jingxian out of the building. However, as soon as she saw the bandage around Tang Jingshuan's abdomen turn red, she made up her mind. After Tang Jingxian fell asleep from exhaustion, Su Qingyin instructed her secretary to arrange for her to get a tattoo. That's right, a tattoo. She wanted to experience the feeling of a knife slicing across her abdomen. Miss Su, what kind of tattoo would you like? The cool-looking tattoo artist asked Su Qingyin. As soon as Su Qingyin sat down on the sofa, Tang Jingshuan's handsome face immediately appeared in her mind. He was actually quite silly and warm at the same time. Even though he had suffered so much, he still had the courage to give and the courage to love. So, Su Qingyin immediately responded, I'll get a tattoo of a dog. In that case, does Miss Su have any special requests for this dog? The tattoo artist asked. Is it possible to incorporate the word Xian into the tattoo? In this lifetime, she had already decided that Tang Jingxian belonged to her. So, tattooing Tang Jingshuan's name shouldn't be too much, right? The tattoo artist froze for a few seconds before she lifted her head and smiled. Of course, however, the person with the word Xian was not going to be happy to see the dog. In that case, let's do it. After saying these words, Su Qingyin felt her head heat up. She calmed down and thought about it carefully. If she were to tattoo Tang Jingshuan's name on her body like this, would Tang Jingxian laugh at her? But, since she had already decided to follow Tang Jingxian, there was no point in hesitating. Once she had made a decision, she shouldn't go back on it. In reality, Su Qingyin was a person that couldn't take any stimulation. Because she had been hurt too much since she was young, she especially treasured the kindness that others gave her. As long as someone was willing to do anything for her, she would do anything for them, especially since Tang Jingxian had suffered such a serious injury because of her. Miss Su, it's time to disinfect the tattoo. Hearing the tattoo artist's reminder, Su Qingyin pulled out her phone and gave Song Yinshu a phone call. You're wrong. We are not the same type of people. The reason why I'm so slow is because I don't understand that Jingshuan's kindness to me and your lack of appreciation are two completely different things. Really? From now on, he belongs to me. Su Qingyin gathered her courage and declared her ownership of Song Yinshu. Su Qingyin gathered her courage and declared her sovereignty over Song Yinshu. I will take good care of him. Song Yinshu, there's nothing else for you to do. From now on, please don't appear in front of Jingxian for no reason. Next time, I won't be so polite. On the other side of the phone, Song Yinshu remained silent for a long time. In reality, she had gone to the hospital today to let Su Qingyin know how much Tang Jingxian had sacrificed for her. If Su Qingyin cherished Tang Jingxian, then she would completely give up. Completely and utterly. I'm drinking. Do you want a glass? On the other side of the phone, Song Yinshu was drowning her sorrows in alcohol. Su Qingyin, I'm actually quite envious of you. By the way, do you mind what happened between the two of us that night? I do. Su Qingyin replied. But a hero doesn't come from where he came from. It's all in the past. I hope you can do it. Otherwise, I will do whatever it takes to get him back. After speaking, Song Yinshu hung up the phone. No, she smashed the phone. She originally held onto a sliver of hope that Su Qingyin would be like her and let Tang Jingxian down. But Let's see how far Su Qingyin could go. After all, she had already let go of him. Would Tongning let her go? Part of the reason why she gave up on Tang Jingxian was because she was afraid of Tongning's revenge. Luckily, the pregnant woman's husband caught her from behind, so they didn't get hurt. It's fine that you gave me fake money, but you actually dared to hurt my wife? A mighty and strong man dressed in professional sportswear, with slender limbs and muscles all over his body. Seeing how strong the other party was, Tang Xian couldn't help but feel a little guilty. It's not me. Still trying to deny it? It was obviously this woman. One of the onlookers pointed out Tang Xian. Tang Xian had nowhere to run and was being watched by everyone. So, she once again decided to use the child in her stomach to escape. What do you want? I'm pregnant. You can't touch me. My wife is also pregnant. Why haven't you thought about letting her go? The man glared at Tang Xian. In the end, he grabbed onto Tang Xian's shirt. Scum like you should be cleaned up. After speaking, the man waved his hand and Tang Xian fell to the ground. As a result, her stomach received a heavy blow. Someone hit a woman. Someone hit a woman. Tang Xian screamed in excitement. It turned out, even a rich heiress would throw a tantrum in the streets and be tainted with a vulgar smell. Seeing this, everyone burst into laughter. Serves you right. At first, Tang Xian did not notice anything wrong with her body. But, a moment later, someone finally noticed the blood on her body. Look, it's blood. Is she going to have a miscarriage? I didn't see anything. Everyone can leave. Even though they saw Tang Xian having a miscarriage, no one stepped forward to help her. The reason was simple. Since she was trying to scam someone, it was also possible that she was trying to scam someone. So, who would show sympathy to a scammer? Help me. Everyone help me. Tang Xian slowly began to feel the pain. But, the crowd quickly dispersed. In this emergency, not a single person was willing to lend her a helping hand. It hurts. Tang Xian lay on the ground in pain as her vision began to blur. But, even though there were so many people around, no one was willing to look at her. They all looked at her with an expression that said she deserved it. In fact, no one was willing to call the ambulance. As Tang Xian's consciousness began to fade, the two men that had been following her all this time finally appeared. One was on the phone while the other helped her up from the ground. Because she had received help, Tang Xian felt unusually warm, so she closed her eyes with a heavy heart. Was it warmth? Tang Xian had no idea what kind of hell was waiting for her. Outside the delivery room of the city hospital, Elder Tang rushed over to the hospital as soon as he heard that Tang Xian and her son were in danger. At this time, Tang Xian had just finished her tests and was about to be sent into the delivery room. Tang Xian lay in bed and saw her grandfather standing in front of her. She couldn't help but grab onto his hand. Grandfather, please help me. I'm in pain. Chapter 596. The doctor was quite surprised by Elder Tang's decision. It was rare for a grandfather to be so heartless towards his own granddaughter. But this was the family's choice. The doctor did not need to be held responsible. All they needed to do was try their best to save Tang Xian and her son. Above all, it was hard for her to imagine how deep the grudge between the grandfather and granddaughter was for him to say something like this. Because she had no idea how hateful Tang Xian was. After another half an hour of anxious waiting, Xia Yuling finally arrived at the hospital from Tangkor and asked about Tang Xian's current situation. Is she still not out yet? Elder Tang sat in his chair in deep thought. After quite some time, he finally nodded his head. It's possible she won't be able to come out. Father. Xia Yuling looked at Elder Tang in surprise. She couldn't believe that Elder Tang could actually be so heartless towards Tang Xian. Sins committed by heaven can be forgiven, but sins committed by oneself cannot be avoided. As soon as Elder Tang finished speaking, the automatic doors of the operating theater slowly opened. The doctor immediately stepped out and said to Elder Tang and Xia Yuling, "It was a close call, but no harm. Don't worry, both mother and child are safe. However, the child is only 7 months old, so he can only stay in an incubator for now. After the nurse has taken care of him, he can be seen in the sterile room. Thank you, nurse. Mother's body is a little weak. She needs to take care of her nutrition in the later stages. Nurse, take her back to her room first. After hearing this, Elder Tang remained expressionless. To be exact, he forced himself not to care about this evil woman. Father, do you want to go see Tang Xian? No need. Xiaoning will be here in a moment. I want to go see my great-grandson first. Elder Tang had no intention of giving Tang Xian a chance. After all, she had done a lot of evil and had done a lot of bad things. Xia Yuling nodded her head. Since Tongning was coming, it meant she was going to settle the score with Tang Xian. So, Xia Yuling did not bother with the woman in the room as she quietly followed behind Elder Tang. Since the child was a descendant of the Tang family, she wasn't going to mistreat him. But she wasn't going to let him have any contact with Tang Xian. After giving birth, Tang Xian fell into a deep sleep out of exhaustion. When she opened her eyes again, it was already 2 hours later. However, the first person she saw when she woke up wasn't a doctor, nurse, or Elder Tang. Instead, it was the person standing by the window. She was none other than Tongning. After Tang Xian saw Tongning clearly, she wanted to say something, but her throat was dry and she couldn't make a sound. Are you awake? She gave birth to a boy, but his condition isn't good. He is currently in an incubator. Tang Xian glared at Tongning with hatred as she struggled to get up. However, she could feel the pain from her lower body, causing her to fall back down. Tongning, stop acting. Why are you here? Nothing special. I'm just here to settle some old scores with you. By the way, Grandpa has already transferred the child to another hospital. What do you mean? Tang Xian asked nervously. What I mean is, Grandpa has already taken your child away. Don't ever dream of seeing your child again, Tongning said in a low voice. Actually, I don't have any special gift to give you. I'm simply giving you an eye for an eye from now on. You won't be able to have another child. Tang Xian froze. After quite some time, she finally understood what Tongning had said. You removed it. That's right. Since you enjoy removing other people's uteruses so much, you should have a taste of it, Tongning replied. Just as Tang Xian struggled to get up, a nurse suddenly knocked on the door and entered. She then handed Tongning a list of expenses. Mrs. Amo, this is the expenses that Miss Tang has incurred during her stay in the hospital. Please. Tongning looked down at the stack of documents in the nurse's hands and smiled. I'm not the one that gave birth. The nurse was a little surprised, not understanding what Tongning meant. Ask her for it. Tongning gestured to the nurse with her chin. She had asked the wrong person. Tang Xian's expression changed as she clenched her fists tightly. After quite some time, she finally said, I have no money. I have no money. I am just a pauper, Tang Xian repeated. She then looked at Tongning with tears in her eyes. Must you be so ruthless? Seeing that the situation wasn't right, the nurse quickly said, You two should discuss it first. There's nothing to discuss. Ask her for it. Tang Xian's biggest fear was being humiliated in front of Tongning. So, she lifted the blanket and sat up. If worst comes to worst, I'll leave the hospital right now. The nurse looked at Tongning awkwardly. However, she did not notice that Tang Xian had already rolled off the bed. The nurse immediately stretched out her arms to help her up. Hurry and get up. I won't rush you anymore. Tang Xian lay on the floor and looked up at Tongning with a mocking smile. Are you satisfied now? Satisfied? First, you contacted the hospital to remove my uterus. Then, you sold information to Yilan and almost caused me to lose my life. Do you think I'm satisfied with your actions? Tongning asked coldly. After hearing Tongning's words, the nurse couldn't help but sigh. Everything that had happened was on the entertainment news and couldn't be faked. So, she knew that she shouldn't sympathize with Tang Xian. Perhaps, you can work at the hospital to pay off your debt. I think the position of a cleaner is perfect for you. Tang Xian, you can no longer be considered a woman. From now on, you will never be able to find happiness. So, from today onwards, we are even. Even? Tang Xian lay on the floor and laughed. You've won everything and I've got nothing. How is this even? The winner takes all. From now on, you will watch as I get better and better and reach the top of the entertainment industry. After speaking, Tongning gently rubbed her stomach to comfort the baby in her stomach. Afterwards, she coldly walked out of the hospital room without a trace of pity for Tang Xian. Because the cruelest part had yet to come. The nurse forced Tang Xian to take the documents to the doctor's office. At this time, Tang Xian's doctor entered the room to check on her condition. Miss Tang, I think you should take care of yourself. However, there's something that I need to tell you. During your difficult labor, I once asked your grandfather if he wanted to save the mother or the child. The doctor said as he scanned Tang Xian's expression. As the doctor spoke, he secretly scanned Tang Xian's expression. I was quite surprised by his answer. Can you guess what he said? Chapter 597. Grandfather. Yes, I still have grandfather. Tang Xian seemed to have found her last hope as she looked at Tang Xian with a glimmer of hope. Grandfather will definitely not sit idly by. I need to go look for him. Miss Tang, calm down, the doctor said as he held onto Tang Xian's shoulder. Don't be silly. Your grandfather would never care about you. Nonsense. Did you know? While you were in labor, I went to the delivery room to get your grandfather to sign the consent form. Guess what he told me? If you were to come across any danger during the operation, if only one of you could be saved, I asked him what he would do. In the end what? Tang Xian lifted her head and asked, what did he say? He said, save the child. The doctor replied in seriousness. Your grandfather doesn't care if you live or die. He simply wants the child. Otherwise, why would he leave with the child right after you gave birth without even taking a glance at you? Save the child. Tang Xian could no longer listen to anything else. All she could think of was the word, save the child. That's impossible. Grandfather would never say that. It's impossible. All the nurses heard it. He is my grandfather. How could he treat his own granddaughter like this? Does he not care if I live or die? Tang Xian clutched onto the blanket as she was on the verge of breaking down. I am his own granddaughter. His own granddaughter. Why would he want me to die? The doctor held onto Tang Xian's shoulder tightly. I'm also surprised. He is your grandfather, yet he doesn't care about your life and wants us to do everything we can to save the child in your stomach. As for you, if you die, then so be it. Tang Xian did not notice anything was wrong. After hearing the doctor's words, she grabbed onto a glass of water from the bedside table and threw it on the floor. You all want me to die. You all want me to die. Seeing Tang Xian lose control, the doctor looked at her with ridicule. After straightening his white coat, he turned around and left the room. Roughly 5 minutes later, a tall and skinny nurse entered the room with 2 bodyguards behind her. Miss Tang, please pay the hospital fees. Otherwise, we will be in a difficult position. I told you, I have no money. I have no money. Tang Xian yelled. If you want money, why don't you rob a bank? Since that's the case, we can only take forceful action. After speaking, the nurse gestured for the 2 bodyguards to grab onto Tang Xian's arms and throw her out of the room. Miss Tang, you have no money. Please go home and rest. Tang Xian had just given birth and was thrown out of the ward. Naturally, she was weak. Your hospital is not afraid of being struck by lightning for doing this. Sorry, Miss Tang, we are simply following the rules. Plus, when it comes to being struck by lightning, you will be the first to be struck by lightning. Let's go. In reality, this revenge was actually very simple. It wasn't Tongning's doing, it was Mo Ting who was backing her up. It had to be simple, violent, and get the job done in one go. To make matters worse, the hospital quickly arranged for a new patient to stay in Tang Xian's room. It was as if she really didn't exist. Tang Xian lay on the ground. It wasn't easy for her to hold onto the wall as she stood up. However, after taking a few steps, she fainted. She had nothing left for a long time, and this time, she had completely lost everything, especially when she thought of the old master's words about protecting the young. Protect the young, hey. Isn't that the heiress of Tangkor? Didn't I hear she used to be so glamorous? How did she end up in this state? What other reason could there be? It must be because she has a bad character and has done a lot of despicable things. I heard she gave birth to a son. I wonder what her son will think of her as his mother. You might not know this, but the Tang family have no intention of letting her have contact with her child again. I heard she can't even afford to see a doctor, and no one in the Tang family cares about her. She really does get what she deserves. The nurses at the front desk started gossiping about Tang Xian out of boredom. However, as soon as they turned around, Tang Xian appeared behind them. They hurriedly coughed as a trace of awkwardness flashed across their faces. Especially when they saw Tang Xian's hateful gaze. They quickly hugged the medical reports and walked away. Tang Xian had nowhere to go and had just given birth. All she could do was endure the pain and walk barefoot out of the hospital. At this time, an elegant woman dressed in a blue coat walked past the outpatient department. As soon as she saw Tang Xian walk out of the inpatient department, she immediately tugged at the nurse beside her and asked, "This patient doesn't even have shoes on." The nurse glanced at Tang Xian and replied, "Madam, someone like her deserves it. Don't worry about her. Her family won't even ask about her." "Why is that? No matter what, we can't let someone walk the streets like this." After speaking, the kind-hearted woman chased after Tang Xian. She then pulled out some money from her handbag and handed it to Tang Xian. "Child, take this money and buy yourself a pair of shoes before you leave." Tang Xian looked at the middle-aged woman and felt she looked a little familiar. She felt like she had seen her somewhere before, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. But, faced with this cup of help, Tang Xian simply shook her head. "No need. There will definitely be despair in life, but you shouldn't give up on yourself." Tang Xian once again pushed the middle-aged woman's hand away as she endured the pain and walked faster. As soon as she saw a speeding car on the road, she did not hesitate and ran into it. Even if she died, she was going to make sure Tang Ning was labeled as the person who forced her own sister to die. Even if she died, she was going to drag Tang Ning down with her. Everyone was shocked, especially the middle-aged woman who reached out to help Tang Xian a moment ago. Seeing Tang Xian being sent flying, she immediately covered her mouth in shock. Oh God! The hospital had no choice but to admit Tang Xian again. However, the doctor was hesitant about whether to give her expensive medication. Afterwards, the middle-aged woman pointed at the doctor and scolded, "Saving a life is more important right now. I will pay for this woman's treatment." As the middle-aged woman had other matters to attend to, she handed over the money and left the hospital. However, as she passed by a newspaper stand, she saw the woman she had just tried to persuade appear on the newspaper. Of course, there was another woman on the newspaper as well. Tang Ning. After seeing the news, she finally understood. So, they are sisters. With this thought, the middle-aged woman's expression darkened. At this time, she pulled out her phone and gave her husband a phone call. "How many days until you arrive in Beijing?" "I'll come as soon as I've dealt with my business." The man replied, "There's something I want to ask you. Is Imo Ting's wife called Tang Ning?" "Of course. Once you arrive in Beijing, you will know that she is very famous." Chapter 598. She is indeed famous. Mother Mo's eyes flashed with displeasure. "Today, I went to the hospital to see the old professor. On the way there, I came across something unbelievable. Old Mo, I can't wait to go see Tang Ning." "I knew you couldn't wait to see your daughter-in-law. I'll hang up first. I'll give Imo Ting a phone call." After hanging up the phone, Mother Imo pulled up Imo Ting's number. She thought she no longer had any expectations for her daughter-in-law, but, at least, she couldn't ignore her own family. But, after seeing the way Tang Ning treated Tang Xian, she felt that the person that treated her sister in this way wouldn't treat the people around them well. As a result, Mother Mo's first impression of Tang Ning was extremely bad. Mother Mo's name was Hua Wenfeng. She worked as a bioengineer and spent most of her time with Father Mo at a research facility overseas. In reality, neither of them liked the fact that Imo Ting had inherited Elder Mo's legacy and become the big boss of the entertainment industry. So, the two of them were both familiar with and hated the entertainment industry. Previously, Imo Ting refused to get married. But, because of their work, they did not restrict Mo Ting and left everything up to Elder Mo to handle. So, as soon as the couple found out that Ting was getting married, they were overjoyed. After all, as his mother, she understood Ting's personality and knew that no one could force him to do anything. But it wasn't easy for them to rush back to Beijing before their daughter-in-law gave birth. But who would have thought, on their first day, they would bump into Tang Xian at the hospital? Son, Mom has returned to Beijing and is currently at the hospital. Can you send someone to pick me up? Ting responded calmly. Afterwards, Ting stood up from his office chair and said to Lu Che, "If you have something to do in the afternoon, look for Fong Yu." "Yes, President." Ting drove straight home. As soon as he entered the living room, he found Tang Ning reading a script. He sat down beside her and said, "Ning, go get changed. Let's go pick up your mother-in-law." Tang Ning was a little surprised. She didn't understand what Ting meant. "Mom has just returned from overseas," Ting replied gently. "But you don't need to be nervous. Just be yourself. I will be here if anything happens." Tang Ning understood Ting's personality well, so she smiled. "Your mother is naturally my mother. I will respect her. No one is more important than you." Ting's tone turned serious after hearing Tang Ning's words. Tang Ning nodded her head. From Ting's attitude, she could tell she had already prepared herself. Ting's mother may not be someone easy to deal with. However, deep down, she knew that Ting was on her side. This was something that would never change. Afterwards, the couple headed to the hospital where Hua Wenfeng was staying. But as soon as Hua Wenfeng saw Tang Ning, she did not think she looked evil. In fact, she looked quiet and sincere. It was hard to imagine how she had climbed from a has-been model to where she was today. Was she the one who did all those things to deal with others? "Mom." Ting wrapped his arm around Tang Ning as he approached Hua Wenfeng and formally introduced her. "This is my wife, Tang Ning." "I know. Hello, Xiao Ning." Hua Wenfeng maintained her good manners as she smiled and shook Tang Ning's hand. As she looked at her bulging stomach, she temporarily let go of her suspicions. Pregnancy must have been tough, right? With Ting taking care of me, it wasn't tough at all. "That's good. Let's get in the car first." Hua Wenfeng understood that the couple had a special status. Even if she wanted to understand Tang Ning, she couldn't do it without hurting the interests of her son and daughter-in-law. So, she helped Ting back into the car. But, as soon as they got in the car, Hua Wenfeng asked the question in her mind. "I read in the newspaper that your sister is also staying at this hospital. She even got into an accident today. Do you want to go see her?" Hearing Hua Wenfeng's question, Tang Ning froze. She could guess that Hua Wenfeng had already seen something and was prejudiced by her first impression. "Your grandson and daughter-in-law almost died at her hands twice. There's no need to visit them." Ting's voice was cold and decisive as he directly dispelled Hua Wenfeng's thoughts. "Let's go then." Hua Wenfeng did not mind Ting's attitude. However, on the way home, the trio did not have anything in common to talk about. All Tang Ning could say was that Ting and Hua Wenfeng were 70% similar. From the looks of it, Hua Wenfeng must have had a lot of suitors when she was younger. Even at her age, she still had an oval face without a single wrinkle. Plus, she had elegant taste in clothes. So, like Ting, Mother gave off an air of nobility that no one could look up to. Most importantly, she was dignified. It didn't take long before the trio arrived home. As soon as Hua Wenfeng entered the living room, she grabbed onto Tang Ning and asked her all sorts of questions. Seeing the script on the table, she couldn't help but ask, "Do you still plan to act?" I quite like it." Tang Ning nodded her head in seriousness. Hua Wenfeng did not say a word as she maintained her smile. This made Tang Ning realize that, since Ting was born to be so smart and outstanding, Mother must also be very smart. She could even manage a simple expression perfectly. It seemed she had finally found a rival. "What's the expected date of delivery?" "Around May," Tang Ning replied. "Okay, this will be the family's first grandchild." Tang Ning was good at observing people and was very sensitive. Although Hua Wenfeng did not show a trace of displeasure, Tang Ning could sense that Hua Wenfeng did not mean what she said. I won't go into too much detail about pregnant women. I'm sure you already know. But in the later stages of pregnancy, some common illnesses may appear, so you need to be careful. Thank you, Mom. Just like this, the couple chatted harmoniously until nighttime. But just as they lay in bed and were about to go to sleep, Tongning lifted her head and said to Ting, who was hugging her, "Although Mom treats me very well and is very polite, I have a feeling that she has a lot of questions she wants to ask me." Okay, Ting nodded. Mom is indeed difficult to deal with. Actually, if Tongning could tell, how could Ting not feel it? But, Ning, I don't need you to be respectful to anyone. Although she is my mother, you are still you. You don't need to make any compromises for her sake. You can count on me. In that case, if I want to ask you about how Mom and wife fell into the water at the same time, I'll save you. Ting replied without hesitation. Because she is my father's responsibility and you are my responsibility. My mission is to take care of you for the rest of your life. What if everyone calls you unfilial? But I'd rather be called unfilial than lose you. Ting's voice sounded from above Tongning's head. You are my life. Chapter 599. That night, Tang Xian's suicidal act naturally attracted the attention of the media. The Tang family were indeed ruthless. Not only did they kidnap the child, they didn't even care if Tang Xian lived or died. In the eyes of the average person, rich families were filled with drama. On top of that, the Tang family had always stood out from the rest. So, Tang Xian's crash easily attracted the attention of the public and the last trace of sympathy they had left. Tang Xian is indeed at our hospital, but she has no way of paying for her pregnancy. Our hospital is also in a difficult position. Tang Xian did indeed have a difficult birth. But I heard that after the child was born, the Tang family took it away and never let Tang Xian see it again. I think Tang Xian deserves it. This is where Tang Xian crashed into the car. It scared a lot of people. For now, her life is not in danger, but it's hard to say. At the time, she was covered in blood. It was a creepy sight. Although Tang Xian is unlucky to have a descendant like her, the Tang family are too ruthless. She is, after all, her blood runs in her veins. The Tang family is a big family, yet they didn't even leave her medical fees. How heartless. Faced with the well-informed internet, there was no need for the media to respond to Tongning's pregnancy. After all, this was her usual tactic. But no one knew what Hua Wenfeng would think after seeing the news. Tongning wanted to talk to Hua Wenfeng as soon as possible. So, the next morning, she woke up early. As she headed downstairs, she saw Hua Wenfeng preparing breakfast for the couple. "Xiaoning, you're awake? Mom, sit down. You shouldn't stand for too long when you're pregnant." Hua Wenfeng immediately pulled Tongning to sit down. Tongning originally thought that Hua Wenfeng wouldn't mind. After all, Ting had been in the entertainment industry for so many years. But as soon as the couple sat down, Hua Wenfeng sneaked a glance at Tongning. She then placed her hands on the table and asked, "I've seen the news. How do you plan to resolve Tang Xian's incident?" Grandfather is handling this matter. Mom, you shouldn't be asking Tongning." Ting appeared from the study room and approached the couple. Ting appeared from the study room and walked over to the couple. "Plus, this is a Tang family matter. Since that's the case, I won't ask any further." Hua Wenfeng smiled at the couple before she continued to eat her breakfast. Tongning could tell that Hua Wenfeng was polite to her and did not show any dominance. But Tongning was already mentally prepared. Perhaps Hua Wenfeng had not started yet. "Mom, I won't say much, but I have one thing to say. At the end of the day, you have to take the Tang family's reputation into consideration." "I know, Mom." What Hua Wenfeng meant was for Tongning to show mercy and not kill Tang Xian. This could also show her magnanimity. But, in Tongning's heart, forgiving Tang Xian had always been a task for God. She couldn't do it. After all, she had never been a kind person. She had never led herself down that path. Hua Wenfeng thought Tongning had agreed to her request, so her expression softened once again. She continued to prepare dishes for Tongning and Ting. The breakfast was harmonious and warm. However, after breakfast, Tongning gave Xia Yuling a phone call from her bedroom. Mom, arrange for PR. Don't let Tang Xin affect our lives again. This morning, a few paparazzi surrounded our front door. It wasn't easy for your grandfather and I to get away, Xia Yuling replied calmly. Mo Ting's mother has returned home and happened to bump into Tang Xian's matter. Xia Yuling remained silent for a few seconds before she replied, in that case, it's best to deal with this matter as soon as possible in case it leaves a bad impression on the in-laws. I'm afraid they've already left a bad impression, Tongning replied quietly. But, Mom, you can discuss with grandfather how to deal with this matter. You don't need to compromise with Tang Xian. Did you think I don't hate her? Xiaoning, don't worry. The Tang family isn't a normal family. We know how to deal with our family matters properly. We don't need anyone's guidance. Since the in-laws have returned, you should respect them and be considerate. Mom, I understand. Xia Yuling knew that Tongning knew what to do, so she didn't need to worry. But it was time she dealt with Tang Xian. So, Xia Yuling no longer avoided the paparazzi outside Tangkor. Instead, she directly accepted their interviews. As a famous perfume family, Tangkor has always been dedicated to serving society. But Tang Xian's matter is a family matter. It has nothing to do with the onlookers. All you see is how pitiful Tang Xian is, but you don't see us crying tears of despair for her. So, please don't use your subjective opinions to judge my family's character and intentions. Regarding Tang Xian, I would like to make a few statements. Firstly, Tang Xian once colluded with the hospital to remove Tongning's uterus. Secondly, Tang Xian once hired someone to kidnap me and tried to kill me while I was overseas. Thirdly, Tang Xian knew Tongning was pregnant, so she sold this information to someone with ulterior motives. As a result, Tongning almost lost her life. Anyone who isn't a member of the Tang family would never be able to experience this pain. So, please don't judge us from a moral standpoint. We are already being very kind by not suing Tang Xian. As a family member, my father, the chairman of Tangkor, once had high hopes for his granddaughter. But what could possibly hurt an old man's heart? Why do we need to think about it? Lastly, this is Tangkor's final explanation regarding Tang Xian. Tangkor and Tang Xian no longer have anything to do with each other. So, no matter what Miss Tang Xian does, it has nothing to do with Tangkor. I also hope that everyone can speak honestly. If you come across a family member like Tang Xian that has committed so many crimes, would you still have the magnanimity to accept her? If you can't do it, then please keep your mouth shut. Xia Yuling's words were neither servile nor overbearing. She was honest. After all, Tang Xian's crimes could be counted in detail. Afterwards, Xia Yuling bowed to the media and returned to Tangkor's headquarters. She did not respond to the matter regarding Tang Xian again. She spoke honestly. Actually, Tang Xian's current fate was a result of her own actions. Previously, there were even rumors that she was using fake money to trick the elderly. How could she possibly want to return to the Tang family? She was simply trying to blackmail us. A friend of mine works at Tangkor. I heard that Tang Xian did all sorts of unsightly things to fight for the inheritance. Tangkor must have been afraid that the Tang family's bloodline would be led astray, so they took away their grandson. Chapter 600. Tang Xian removed a woman's uterus and sold information about her. How could she be a mother? If she really was a mother, she would never do something so disgusting. You may be sympathizing with Tang Xian right now, but I'm willing to bet that if the Tang family didn't take the child away, Tang Xian would have a new bargaining chip to use against them. Actually, I really want to know why people still sympathize with Tang Xian at this point. Since they thought it was just something to relieve their boredom, why not just take a look instead of attacking Tangkor and Tongning? In reality, Xia Yuling's attitude was already extremely firm. She clearly expressed that Tangkor didn't owe Tang Xian anything, and that Tang Xian was no longer related to Tangkor. With the help of Hai Rue, Tang Xian's incident would automatically be suppressed and no longer be a waste of everyone's time and energy. So, Tang Xian had hurt herself for nothing. In this world, no one would ever sympathize with her actions again. At this point, She had completely become a child-herding sheep. Inside the hospital room, Tang Xian had just woken up. Seeing that she was looking at the entertainment news not far away with a stiff neck, the nurse couldn't help but lower her head and say to her, "The driver who hit you has already paid for your surgery. As for the money you owe, the hospital will treat you completely and not pursue the matter. But after that, Miss Tang, please leave immediately." The so-called justice was simply because they were afraid that Tang Xian would cause more trouble. The number of paparazzi every day had already disrupted the order of the hospital. In reality, the reason why the hospital made this compromise was because they had previously received donations from Tangkor. In order to keep Tang Xian safe, the hospital made this decision after some discussion. However, even when the decision was finally approved, the hospital was still a little unwilling. They knew what kind of person Tang Xian was, yet they still wanted to treat her well. This was the same as eating a pile of shit despite knowing it was sitting in front of them. If she was a good person, they would be more than happy to help her. If a single person was capable of provoking the hatred of the entire nation, regardless of gender or age, then that person must be extremely skilled. But Tang Xian had obviously done it. Meanwhile, as Tang Xian lay in bed, her mind suddenly went blank. After quite some time, she finally whispered to the nurse, "Why didn't the driver kill me? Let the driver go. He's innocent. He's just a young man who just started his own business. You bumped into him like that, and he took out the only liquid capital in his pocket. Tang Xian, you are not the only person in this world. Don't think so highly of yourself. Everyone has to revolve around you. The difference between you and Tongning is not your looks or anything else, but your heart." One more thing, I forgot to tell you. Your left leg might be a little lame in the future. After speaking, the nurse looked at Tang Xian helplessly and turned to leave the room. He was lame. Tang Xian suddenly lay in bed, crying and laughing at the same time. It seemed, every time she thought of a way to deal with Tongning, she would end up helping Tongning become better, while she would end up becoming more pitiful. "I don't want to fight anymore. I can't fight anymore. But is there anyone who can help me?" The answer, of course, was no. With this background, Tang Kor successfully escaped from Tang Xian's incident without being implicated by Tang Xian. This was because Xia Yuling was determined not to forgive anyone that hurt her family. Tongning did not ask a single question as she quietly stayed at home to rest. Of course, Tongning wasn't sure if Hua Wenfeng was satisfied with this outcome. At this moment, the two women were sitting in the living room watching the news. As soon as Hua Wenfeng saw Xia Yuling on the television, she turned to look at Tongning and asked, "Xiao Ning, when can I meet with your mother?" "Mom, I'm sorry. I should have arranged it earlier. It's my fault," Tongning replied humbly. When you couldn't guess what someone was thinking, the best thing to do was to retreat while the enemy advanced. By putting on an attitude that everything was her fault, she could reduce the other party's anger by half. "I'll make a phone call right now. There's no rush." Hua Wenfeng put down the remote control in her hands and approached Tongning. "Yes, I'm currently pregnant. So there are a lot of things that I can't do personally." "That's true. Let's talk about it after the baby is born." Hua Wenfeng smiled. "Yes, I'm currently pregnant. So there are a lot of things that I can't do personally." According to Hua Wenfeng's words, Tongning had a feeling that she wanted Tongning to return and take over Tangkor. This made Tongning feel a little uncomfortable. Although Hua Wenfeng didn't openly criticize her and Mo Ting's life, her words were full of hints. "By the way, I have a dinner appointment with an old professor from the Biology Research Institute tomorrow. He used to be Mo Ting's doctor and has taken care of him for many years. Do you have time to come with me tomorrow?" Hearing Hua Wenfeng's invitation, Tongning nodded her head without hesitation. "Of course, Mom." Okay. When the two flawless people exchanged blows, on the surface, it was impossible to tell who was winning or losing. After all, they didn't want to give each other anything to use against them. Tongning could confide in Mo Ting, but she couldn't say a single word to Hua Wenfeng. Since ancient times, the relationship between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law had always been a difficult one. It seemed she was no exception. It didn't take long before Mo Ting returned home. Seeing the expressions on Tongning and Hua Wenfeng's faces, He could roughly guess what was going on. So, he sat down beside Tongning and wrapped his arm around her shoulder as he said to Hua Wenfeng, "Mom, since you're back, there are a few things that I need to clarify with you. I don't want to put on a show. If you have something to say, then say it. There's no need to be secretive or give hints in front of Tongning. This has never happened in our family before. The woman that I, Emoting, married is not for the sake of being bullied or wronged. If you need a maid or something else, I can prepare thousands of them for you. But I will not allow you to hurt Tongning. I'm not asking you to accept Tongning, but I hope you don't interfere with our lifestyle. You once said that you would pretend that you never gave birth to me. So, please pretend that you never had a daughter-in-law." Tongning originally thought that Hua Wenfeng would be angry after hearing this. But she simply smiled. "Son, I gave birth to you. Of course, I understand you. Mom, it's not what you think." Chapter 601. Hua Wenfeng's gentleness made all the words Emoting wanted to say, but they were all stuck in his throat. "I was just saying it casually. If you don't like it, I won't mention it again." Hua Wenfeng retreated in order to advance. This made Tongning realize how smart her mother-in-law was. "After all, I'm already so old. I can't and shouldn't interfere in the lives of young people. I've overstepped my boundaries." Tongning did not say a word. She simply smiled at Hua Wenfeng. However, she hated the feeling of having to be so careful at home. Emoting glanced at Hua Wenfeng calmly. He did not say another word as he wrapped his arm around Tongning's waist. After quite some time, he finally said, "Mom, I've bought another house in Hyatt. It's close to the sea. I know you and Dad like it, so I've already asked someone to prepare it. You can move in within 3 days. When that time comes, you won't have to stay in the guest room anymore." The meaning of this was already very clear. Emoting wanted Hua Wenfeng to stop interfering with his and Tongning's lives. Young people have their own way of life. "I understand. Fine, since your father is coming home soon, I'll move in first and won't be going overseas for a while." However, Hua Wenfeng did not show any signs of anger. In fact, she acted like she was talking about something normal. This was an eye-opener for Tongning. Perhaps she should give up her position as the #1 ninja in the world to Hua Wenfeng. Tongning didn't really like Hua Wenfeng. As long as Hua Wenfeng didn't cross the line, she would definitely respect her. However, up until now, she had yet to see Hua Wenfeng open up her heart to her. Of course, she didn't expect a mother-in-law to treat her daughter-in-law with such sincerity after meeting her for only a few days. "Mom, I'm sure you won't be used to moving over on your own without any preparations. Why don't you wait for Dad to come home before moving in?" Tongning said gently. Her tone contained a hint of coquettishness. What had Tongning not been through? Why would she be afraid of establishing a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship? Above all, up until now, she had yet to see any ill intentions from Hua Wenfeng. At least, she had shown concern for them, even if their relationship was a little over the line. But any relationship had to go through a process of getting used to. In this world, the only person who could understand her from the start was Emoting. "Xiaoning, take good care of yourself. Mom will take care of you." Hua Wenfeng maintained her gentleness as an elder the entire time. So, Tongning simply nodded her head. Late at night, the couple were already lying in bed. In the midst of her drowsiness, Tongning leaned her elbow against Emoting's chest. "Hubby, you're not asleep yet?" Emoting turned his body slightly and hugged her even tighter. "You want to ask me about Mom, right? I can't really feel her heart." It was common knowledge that Tongning was good at observing people. As long as she set her eyes on someone or experienced something small, she would be able to see through them, even though she would never expose them. But Hua Wenfeng, she couldn't even guess what she was thinking. "It's my fault. I only told her about our marriage and nothing else. It's not your style to hide things." At the time, she didn't ask too much, so I had no idea that her attitude towards you would be so vague and unpredictable. Emoting explained gently. "I know you don't like to be left in the dark, so I just want to make things clear. After Mom moves out, I will remove all the guest rooms, leaving only the master bedroom and the nursery. You can't blame her. After all, the first thing she saw was Tang Xian's suicide. It's no surprise that she would misunderstand me. So, give me some time and let me try to get closer to her, Tongning said as she leaned against Emoting's chest. How long has it been since you last saw your mother? The last time we met was around 4 years ago. In that case, not only does she not treat me well, she also treats you as her son. She has no idea that my Emoting has already become so powerful. So, let's try to let her understand us. That's more important than anything else. Actually, as long as she accepts someone, she will do her best for them. This was something that Emoting understood Hua Wenfeng well. After all, she was his mother. How could she possibly be an evil person? Impossible. Tongning responded before she drifted off to sleep. So, the next morning, around 10 a.m., just as Hua Wenfeng was about to leave the house with her handbag, she ran into a well-dressed Tongning sitting on the sofa. Of course, because she was going to meet with the elders, Tongning was dressed appropriately. I'm waiting for Mom, Tongning replied humbly. Let's go then. Seeing that Tongning was quiet, Hua Wenfeng immediately ran over to help her up. Soon, the two women arrived at the entrance of the hospital. The hospital in front of them was none other than the hospital that Tang Xian was currently recovering at. As soon as Hua Wenfeng saw the hospital entrance, she was reminded of the scene of Tang Xian's car accident. So, a chill ran down her spine. This was the simplest and most direct reason for her to reject Tongning. Of course, she wasn't like the people outside who would directly embarrass Tongning. But if she was asked to accept Tongning immediately, she would feel extremely uncomfortable. Mom, I know that as soon as you returned to China, you saw the Tang family's news and personally witnessed Tang Xian's incident. Because of their identities, the two did not directly appear at the hospital. Instead, they waited in the car. Meanwhile, Hua Wenfeng never expected that Tongning would be so direct. I have to admit, when it came to dealing with Tang Xian, I spared no effort. I did indeed hate her. I endured for over 20 years, but in the end, I was hurt by her. Most importantly, she tried to hurt my and Emoting's child. This is the most unforgivable thing I can do. I don't expect you to understand. I simply want you to be fair. Not everyone who is standing and smiling is free from pain. She directly hurt me and our child, but I still let her off the hook. But I can't let Tang Xian go. Hua Wenfeng never expected Tongning to say such heartfelt words. After a long silence, so long that Tongning thought she wouldn't respond, she suddenly replied, I'm afraid that if you can be so ruthless towards your sister, what about your other family members? What about Emoting's family? Mom, time truly reveals a person's heart. Actually, I already knew that you were a famous model, but I had no idea that you ended up becoming an actress, Hua Wenfeng explained. What's wrong with being an actress? Tongning suddenly grasped the key point in Hua Wenfeng's words. Actress. But Emoting was the king of the entertainment industry and Elder Emo was a famous actor. Yet, Hua Wenfeng didn't seem to have much of a reaction. Chapter 602. Being an actress has never been a problem, Hua Wenfeng said in a melancholic tone. But I don't like actors. Hua Wenfeng's words were too direct and too absolute. It was as if she was telling Tongning that she would never accept her. However, if it was any other woman, they would have either tried to curry favor with the man in power or directly pushed open the door to express their dissatisfaction. However, when these words were used on Tongning, it did not cause much of a change in her emotions. After quite some time, Tongning finally replied, Actually, I don't like doctors and people in the field of biotechnology either. Hua Wenfeng never expected that Tongning would throw her words back at her. In fact, her words were even more forceful and aggressive. You don't like me? That's fine. I don't necessarily like you. A surgical knife can make a person infertile. Tongning was referring to Tang Xian's scheme in the past. Not all doctors are like that. For the same reason, actors are the same. Tongning laughed. Hua Wenfeng knew that arguing with Tongning wasn't going to work, but she did not get angry. Although she felt a little uncomfortable, it wasn't to the point where she couldn't tolerate it. Have you always been this eloquent with emoting? Hua Wenfeng asked as she turned to look at Tongning. He can't stand to see me being bullied. So, he sometimes acts like a teacher and tells me that no matter who it is, as long as they attack me, I will return the favor 100-fold. Tongning's eyes darkened as her tone became a lot more stern. After all, she had approached Hua Wenfeng because she wanted to resolve the issue in her heart. But, from the looks of it, Hua Wenfeng had no intention of accepting her. Actually, this wasn't something to be upset about. After all, everyone had their own choices. Plus, if Hua Wenfeng was in Hua Wenfeng's shoes and her daughter-in-law did something that she didn't like, even if she didn't interfere, she would still find it hard to accept. So, she completely understood what Hua Wenfeng was thinking. Over the years, Xiaoting has managed to expand the profession that I hate. Hua Wenfeng couldn't help but sigh. In reality, after so many years, she had already gotten used to Hai Rui's existence. But her only son, Emoting, had a wife who was also an actress. Actually, Xiaoning, I'm not picking on you. It's normal that you are outstanding. Otherwise, you wouldn't have caught Emoting's attention. But I saw Tang Xian crash the car with my own eyes and her blood almost splashed on me. That's why I'm confused. A person has already used his life to pay for it. What else can't be forgiven? Everyone knows that you are ruthless. Those who offend you do not have a good ending. From this, it can be seen that you do not have a forgiving heart. Last night, I spent the entire night looking at your reports. Plus, I'm sure you've benefited quite a bit from emoting, right? In the beginning, it's not that I didn't have any hope for you, but you're not the type of daughter-in-law I want in every aspect. So, we shouldn't make things difficult for each other. Although you and Emoting are married and your child is about to be born, I can't object to it. I can have my own opinions and actions. So, how we are now and how we will be in the future, as long as we can look after each other on the surface, that's about it. As for the baby, after you give birth, you will definitely return to filming. So, I can take care of the baby for you, and you can focus on your career. This was equivalent to making things clear. Tongning looked at Hua Wenfeng from behind. Actually, liking someone or hating them was a simple matter. If you didn't like someone, you didn't need to force yourself to get along with them. Ting and I have no intention of letting someone else take care of the baby. In other words, from now on, when no one else was around, the couple no longer needed to pretend to be polite. Hua Wenfeng's lips curved slightly in mockery. This was probably the only expression that Tongning had ever seen her show any emotion. In a moment, when you see the professor, don't say anything. I'll listen to Mom. Tongning looked out the window. It would be best if the couple treated each other with respect. As long as it wasn't a big deal, it wouldn't affect her. But if Hua Wenfeng had any thoughts. Soon, a short and skinny doctor wearing a white coat approached the couple's car. He knocked on the window and said to Hua Wenfeng, Mrs. Mo, our professor would like to invite you in. Let's go, Hua Wenfeng said as she glanced back at Tongning. Tongning remained calm the entire time. She wasn't surprised by the lack of a good relationship between her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. That was because her principle of doing things would never change. How you treat me, how I treat you. Plus, Tongning had a feeling that Hua Wenfeng had a motive for inviting her to visit the professor. After entering the hospital through the staff passageway, Tongning and Hua Wenfeng entered an old office. Sitting inside was a white-haired old man. From the looks of it, he was in his early 70s and looked at Hua Wenfeng lovingly. Wenfeng, Professor. Hua Wenfeng immediately stepped forward to shake the old man's hand. I just returned from overseas and brought my daughter-in-law to visit you. As you can see, you've taken good care of Emoting in the past. But ever since he got married, he hasn't made a special trip to see you. So, I'm here today to apologize. The old man looked past Hua Wenfeng and glanced at Tongning before nodding his head. Only you would think of this. How thoughtful. The office was filled with a strong smell of medicine. As a result, Tongning felt a little nauseous. Hua Wenfeng and Hua Wenfeng immediately said to Tongning, let's go out and get some fresh air. Tongning nodded her head slightly at the professor before she turned and left the office. Afterwards, Tongning headed to the bathroom. But, before she could step out, she heard a conversation outside the cubicle. "Hey, let me tell you, I just overheard the professor talking to a rich woman outside his office. It seems someone has come to ask him about the gender of his child. But I didn't see which pregnant woman it was. Our professor is amazing in this aspect. If he says he's going to give birth to a son, then there's no way he's going to give birth to a daughter. But this doesn't seem too good. According to my experience, if it's the mother, then she should be accompanying the pregnant woman. If it's the husband, then it's fine. But if it's the mother-in-law and the pregnant woman isn't with them, then something is definitely fishy. Sure. I wonder which unlucky pregnant woman it is." The two women's voices weren't loud. In fact, they were accompanied by the sound of running water. But every word was clearly heard by Tongning. What other pregnant woman could it be? Apart from Tongning, who else could it be? Of course, Tongning didn't know if it was a good or bad thing that Hua Wenfeng found out about the gender of her child. But her actions seemed to have crossed her bottom line. Chapter 603. The person that attacked her in front of her, the person that dealt with her in front of her, and the person that secretly reached out to her. Naturally, she remained calm and collected. On the surface, they said they were here to see the professor, but in reality, they simply wanted to find out the gender of the baby in her stomach. What was Hua Wenfeng planning? Tongning thought about it for a while, but she couldn't come up with an answer. All she could do was endure it and return to the professor's office. As soon as they saw her return, the couple's expressions remained unchanged as they continued to chat. It seemed they were prepared to let Tongning wait on the sofa. Seeing that the couple had no intention of stopping, Tongning sent Emoting a message. "Hubby, come pick me up and give me an excuse to leave." "I'll be there soon," Emoting replied quickly. Tongning secretly curved her lips. She pretended nothing had happened as she flipped through a medical book. After about 10 minutes, the couple finally finished their conversation and turned their attention to Tongning. "Xiaoning, this child, is actually quite obedient. At the time, when I heard that Emoting had randomly found someone to marry, I was worried that the child would find someone greedy for benefits, especially the one with the surname Qi." The old professor pushed up the bridge of his nose and said slowly, afterwards, "I haven't heard from Emoting for a long time. I thought he had reconsidered his decision, but I never expected that he had already been secretly married to you for so long. Seeing that the two of you have such a good relationship, grandfather is relieved." "Thank you for your concern, Professor." Tongning smiled sincerely. "But I never expected that you would become an actress. Over the past few days, I've been worried that it would affect Wenfeng. But from what I've seen today, I can see that it's still the case." The old professor sounded a little disappointed. "So, Xiaoning, can grandfatherly make a request of you?" She wasn't related to him. What kind of request did this professor have for her? "Filial piety is the most important thing. I believe that you are a kind child. So, can you promise me that you will never act again?" The old professor asked in seriousness. That's right. He was serious. Hua Wenfeng couldn't say it out loud, so she allowed others to make things difficult for Tongning. If she didn't agree, she would be considered disloyal and unfilial. Can the professor tell Xiaoning the reason? Is it because of my mother's sad past? After all, this is my career. I can't just abandon it for no reason. I'm feeling quite conflicted. Tongning pointed out the problem with a few words. She was determined to find out the reason behind everything. In other words, it was the knot in Hua Wenfeng's heart. Otherwise, would he let her give up just like that? Was she a puppet that could be manipulated by others? Can't you just agree? The old professor asked helplessly. Tongning smiled and said to the two women, "Even if the professor didn't say anything, I would have already guessed it. But Imo Ting and I are individuals. Everything about us should be respected by our elders. The metaphorical meaning is that I refuse. Sigh. I'm trying to shorten the distance between you two." Xiaoning didn't know how to appreciate kindness. "I'm sorry," Tongning apologized. The old professor never expected Tongning to reject him so directly. So, his attitude towards Tongning became a lot more subtle. You have to think this through. I think it's a little funny. Tongning, am an upright person. Why would I listen to the old professor's suggestion and give up on my career so easily? If my mother says that she's not feeling well tomorrow and that the child in my stomach bumped into her, would I have to get an abortion? Plus, Mom, although we don't agree with each other, at least I feel that you have always been well-mannered. I never expected that you would make things difficult for a junior like me. It's true that I'm an actress, but that's only me. Just because I'm married to Imo Ting, I don't have to listen to everything you say. Let me ask you, have you listened to grandfather? Plus, if it was a good suggestion, perhaps we could have discussed it. But an unreasonable request like this, I'm sorry I can't comply. Hua Wenfeng's expression changed slightly. She never imagined that she would be taught a lesson by a junior in front of an elder at a place like this. The old professor noticed the change in Hua Wenfeng's expression, so he tried to smooth things over. This has nothing to do with Wenfeng. It's just that I, an old man, was too nosy. Since you don't want to listen, then don't listen. As a descendant, you should consider your parents. How could you be so selfish? Plus, you are a model, not a proper actress. Why can't you change industries and do whatever you want? After hearing this, Tongning felt the professor's words were getting more and more ridiculous. Just as she was about to respond, a deep voice suddenly resounded from behind. Whether she wants to be an actress or not is up to me. Since when did it become your turn? From now on, if you have any similar problems, you can come to me. I am Tongning's manager. Plus, not only do I want her to continue being an actress, I also want her to receive a Best Actress award. Grandfather Li, you have so much free time on your hands. You should be more concerned about your children and grandchildren. I heard that your son got into a fight a couple of days ago and is currently being detained. You don't need to worry about the Imo family's matters. The old professor's face turned red and white as a result of Imo Ting's words. He had lost face, but there was nothing he could do to refute Imo Ting's words. All he could do was look away in anger. Shouting, Grandfather Li merely said a few words. Have you forgotten how the professor took care of you in the past? When I'm sick, he treats me. I give him money and I serve him. This is his job. I'm taking Ning with me. From now on, don't even think about taking her anywhere else. After speaking, the couple turned around decisively. At this time, Professor Li asked Imo Ting from behind, is your mother not as important as this actress? Based on what she did today, what do you think? Imo Ting did not turn around, but his voice contained a sense of danger. By the way, I forgot to tell you, Grandfather Li, I want your son to stay in the detention center for a few more days. Do you have any objections? Professor Li's expression suddenly changed. I love my wife dearly. How could I allow someone to mistreat her? Since you don't respect your age, then don't blame me for not showing mercy. Everyone knows that I, Imo Ting, dote on my wife. I'm not joking. Who gave you the guts to take advantage of your seniority in front of me? It was obvious that Imo Ting was suppressing the anger in his heart. Afterwards, Tongning tugged on his shirt. Let's go. What's the point of saying so much? I didn't agree to it. Chapter 604. Hua Wenfeng watched helplessly as the couple left. She never expected that Imo Ting would dote on Tongning to such an extent. Wenfeng, it seems your days from now on won't be easy, the old professor scoffed. However, he was used to being arrogant, so he did not take Imo Ting's words to heart. If you don't teach her well, this woman may destroy the Imo family in the future. Hua Wenfeng did not respond. However, a cold glint appeared in her eyes. On the way home, Imo Ting scanned Tongning from head to toe, afraid that she would get hurt again. After all, the few times that Tongning had almost fallen into Imo Ting's trap, Imo Ting was still traumatized. I'm fine, Tongning said as she held onto Imo Ting's hand. I'm completely fine. From now on, if she invites you to any event, no matter what it is, if you don't want to attend, just reject her. Ting was obviously still bothered by the old professor's humiliation. Tongning nodded her head. However, she suddenly remembered that Hua Wenfeng was testing the gender of the baby in her stomach. So, she told Ting everything that had happened. After hearing everything, Ting did not say a word for quite some time. He simply ran his slender fingers across Tongning's bulging stomach and closed his eyes to feel the subtle connection between them. Okay, Ting understood. Ting understood what he meant. Tongning didn't need to get involved. He would arrange for some useful people to investigate the matter. No matter what she wants to do and no matter what she wants to do, you don't need to be afraid. Have I ever been afraid? Tongning leaned against Ting's chest as the corners of her lips curved upwards. Ting lowered his head. Just as he was about to place a kiss on Tongning's ink-black hair, Tongning's phone interrupted his actions. As soon as Tongning saw that it was a phone call from Long Jie, she immediately sat up and picked up the phone. It had been a long time since she had seen Long Jie, so she wondered how she was doing. Tongning. Long Jie's voice was still as cheerful as before. However, there was a hint of caution in her voice. Where are you right now? Is boss by your side? Of course, Tongning nodded. Okay, then I won't care anymore. It's like this. There's a famous French director that's currently looking for an Asian female lead in Beijing. It's a big opportunity for next year, and a lot of famous actresses are fighting for it. I've asked the director's assistant, and he doesn't mind if you go for an audition while pregnant. There are a lot of actresses overseas that are like this. Do you want to give it a try? I didn't dare to tell Lu Che about this, so I asked you first, Long Jie said quietly as she covered her phone. You also know that seasonal dramas are very popular now. It's the drama Headless Female Doctor that has caused a mad scramble for resources recently. It's now in preparation for the third season. After hearing Long Jie's words, Tongning burst out laughing. Are you that afraid of Lu Che? Lu Che doesn't want me to affect your body, but I think I am your benefactor. For example, when you went for a checkup with me, if not for that, you would not have known you were pregnant and exposed Tang Xian's scheme. From this perspective, Long Jie was indeed a person who brought good luck. Let me think about it. Then I'll send you the information and the script first. Okay, Tongning nodded with a smile. Seeing her expression, Ting snatched the phone out of her hand and hugged her tightly. What trouble does Long Jie want to cause this time? She helped me fight for a big-name project. Do you remember the season drama called The Headless Female Doctor in France? The director is currently in preparation for the third season, but he needs an Asian actress. So you want to give it a try? Ting raised an eyebrow. It's not impossible, but it must not affect your health. If you need to use force, then there's no room for negotiation. I'll ask Long Jie to send you the information first. If you have permission, I'll go for an audition. An audition. Because of her pregnancy, it had been a long time since Tongning had experienced her addiction to acting. So, Ting understood how she felt. But I'm sure Mom will feel a little uncomfortable. She's already made you feel uncomfortable. Ting's protectiveness was frightening. So, Tongning naturally didn't want to pass on the responsibility. From now on, I will handle things like this myself. I can't let my husband handle everything. I don't want you to be misunderstood by others. Hearing this, Ting held onto Tongning's right hand and placed a gentle kiss on the back of it. There are more than a few people that misunderstand me. As long as I have a wife to dote on me, that's enough. Doting on each other. This was something that most couples couldn't do. After all, most people were selfish. For the sake of pride, they could give up on their lover. For the sake of their career, they could give up on their lover. There would always be a reason for them to do something that they knew they would regret for the rest of their lives. Perhaps, to create hype, the French director immediately released the news as soon as he found out that Tongning might be attending an audition. Rumor has it that Tongning is about to audition. Is she planning to make a comeback? She's pregnant, yet she's auditioning. Netizens are calling her stubborn. Meanwhile, the netizens were in a heated discussion. I just asked a friend for some information. I was just about to mention that the brainless zombie doctor looks quite similar to Tongning. They are both equally cool. Oh God, if only I could see Tongning with curly hair. a leather skirt and a gun in her hand. How cool would she look? Tongning, hurry up and audition. You have to secure the role. Actually, Imo Ting had only just received the information from Long Jie. Of course, there was nothing to worry about with the Ace production crew. But who could guarantee that Tongning would be 100% safe? Even though she had already bought insurance for her legs, from the looks of it, other parts of her body also needed insurance. President, my wife has caused trouble for you. Actually, the madam didn't need to know about this, Lu Che said apologetically as he looked at Imo Ting's furrowed brows. Since you've already said that she's your wife, what else can I do? Imo Ting put down the information in his hand and looked at Lu Che. Go and understand her personality and hobbies. I'm sure there will be a lot of people attending the audition, so safety is the most important thing. Yes, President. How come there's no time for an audition? Imo Ting flipped through the information in his hand, but he still hadn't found the most important one. Long Man is still asking about it. In a moment, I will send it to the madam, Lu Che replied. Let's do that then. By the way, President, I heard that your mother doesn't like actors? Hearing this question, Imo Ting lifted his head and glared at Lu Che. It was like he was saying, since when did you have the right to ask about something like this? Lu Che had good intentions, so he had no choice but to leave Imo Ting's office with a wronged expression. Chapter 605. Not long after Hua Wenfeng announced that she didn't like actors, news of Tongning's upcoming audition was already spreading. Worst of all, she was carrying a child with her. So, it was impossible for her to maintain her previous good manners. While Imo Ting wasn't around, she headed upstairs and knocked on Tongning and Imo Ting's bedroom door. Mom! Hua Wenfeng stood outside the door with her arms crossed. She handed Tongning the newspaper and asked, What audition are you going for? Tongning looked at the newspaper in Hua Wenfeng's hands and nodded her head. I'm currently waiting for my audition. Are you crazy? Hua Wenfeng threw the newspaper in front of Tongning. Don't you know that you are already in your 7th month of pregnancy? Why can't you just stay at home and wait to give birth? Mom, things aren't what you think they are. Who's your mom? Hua Wenfeng asked. Although you and Imo Ting are married and recognized by the law, in my heart, I have the right to reject you as my daughter-in-law. In that case, there's nothing else to say. Tongning's expression turned cold as she replied, Do you like acting that much? You haven't even given birth yet you can't wait to go out and show off? Hearing the word, show off, Tongning kept repeating in her heart. She was Imo Ting's mother, so she endured until Hua Wenfeng finally said, I won't allow it. You're being too nosy, Tongning replied coldly before she closed the door. As a result, Tongning realized that she might not be able to live under the same roof as Hua Wenfeng and get along with each other. She needed to think of a foolproof plan. Afterwards, Tongning gave Tang Jingxian a phone call. Jingxian, your sister is in a bit of trouble. Can you help me out? My dear sister, my injuries haven't recovered yet. You need to rest, Tongning replied calmly. Okay, tell me what it is. Tang Jingxian was currently on speakerphone because he was currently holding onto a bowl of chicken soup that Su Qingyan had prepared for him. Tongning told Tang Jingxian what she was thinking. As soon as Su Qingyan heard it, she raised her hand and joined in. I'll move in too. You. Tang Jingxian looked at her questioningly. What identity? Your wife, Su Qingyan blurted out. After speaking, the two men were stunned. On the other end of the phone, Tongning smiled and said, Since that's the case, both of you can come over. Afterwards, she gave Imo Ting a phone call. She did not tell him about her argument with Hua Wenfeng. Instead, she simply told him that Tang Jingxian wanted to come over to her home to recover from his injuries and spend some time with her. As soon as Imo Ting heard this, he knew what Tongning was planning, so his lips curved upwards into a smile, as long as you're happy. However, as soon as the two women put down their phones, Imo Ting's gaze turned deep and cold. If Hua Wenfeng hadn't done something outrageous, Tongning would not have come up with a plan to avoid her. However, Tongning did not say. To ensure that everything went smoothly, Mo Ting headed straight to the hospital after work and returned to Hyatt Regency with Tang Jingxian and Su Qingyan. At this moment, Hua Wenfeng was the only one standing in the living room. As soon as she saw them, she looked at them questioningly. However, Su Qingyan immediately approached them and said, "You must be Auntie Hua. You look so elegant and have maintained yourself well. I heard that you specialize in biotechnology. I admire you so much. Do you accept apprentices?" Faced with Su Qingyan's series of questions, Hua Wenfeng looked confused and uncomfortable. After quite some time, Su Qingyan finally introduced herself. "My name is Su Qingyan. I am the chairman of Su Corps. I am Tang Jingshuan's wife and I call President Mo brother-in-law." Hua Wenfeng looked at Mo Ting suspiciously as Mo Ting nodded his head. "Jingxian is injured and not feeling well, so he came over to stay for a few days." Hua Wenfeng wanted to say something, but Su Qingyan beat her to it. "Don't worry, Auntie, we won't stay here forever. We know our place well, otherwise, brother-in-law would definitely kick us out." Su Qingyan was actually mocking Hua Wenfeng by saying that she wouldn't leave. Of course, because Hua Wenfeng didn't like Tongning, she didn't like the Tang family either. Doesn't the Tang family have a house? The Su family home is also habitable, isn't it? We are all a family. Isn't it fun to be together? Auntie, President Mo even bought a house for you at Hyatt Regency, yet you haven't moved out yet. I'm sure you can't bear to part with President Mo and Ning Jia, right? Plus, they are about to give birth to their baby. Hua Wenfeng was rendered speechless by Su Qingyan's words. She took a deep breath, uncrossed her arms and entered her own guest room. Seeing this, Tang Jingxian raised his thumb at Su Qingyan. "You're amazing. Of course, I learned it from Yilan." It seemed, Yilan's many years at the Su household had not been a bad thing for Su Qingyan. At least, she had learned a few tricks. "Tonight, the two of you can sleep in another guest room," Mo Ting said straightforwardly. President Mo, is there only one room left?" Although Su Qingyan had already recognized her feelings for Tang Jingxian, she didn't think things should progress so quickly. "Fine, one room. With my current state, are you afraid that I will turn into a wolf? Why don't we put a bowl of water in the middle of the bed?" Tang Jingxian asked as he looked at Su Qingyan dotingly. Su Qingyan took a deep breath and waved her hand. "Forget it. Who knows, I might be the one taking advantage of you. Anything is fine, as long as we don't make any noise upstairs and disturb Ning's rest." "Don't worry, brother-in-law," Tang Jingxian promised in seriousness. "I really can't tell that President Mo, who dotes on Ning Jie so much, would have a mother like this. Luckily, Ning Jie isn't the type to meekly accept adversity. Otherwise, her days would be very difficult," Su Qingyan said as she leaned against Tang Jingshuan's shoulder. "So, in order to achieve our goal as soon as possible, we need to create a big commotion tonight. How do we do that? Show us a film like that." As Su Qingyan spoke, her face turned slightly red. As a woman, she was naturally embarrassed, especially since she was in the same room as a man. "Forget it. It's too awkward. I think it's a good idea," Tang Jingxian laughed. "If we don't use some special methods, how are we going to win by surprise? What if you have feelings for me?" Su Qingyan immediately wrapped her arms around her shoulders. "I actually think you want me to have feelings for you." Su Qingyan couldn't win against Tang Jingxian verbally, so she could only turn her head away and hide her smile. On the second floor, as soon as Tongning saw Mo Ting enter the bedroom, she couldn't help but ask, "Are they here? I didn't let you down. I won a beautiful battle for you," Mo Ting replied as he put down his jacket and sat down on the edge of the bed. "Do you think I went a little overboard?" Tang, Mo, Xin, Su, King. In the future, don't avoid it. Just enjoy it, okay? Qingyan, it wasn't easy for me to be able to hug you. Even though, I don't know if you were staying with me because you are grateful for what I did for you," Tang Jingxian said as he gently stroked Su Qingyan's back. Let's listen to the humming on the television. Su Qingyin appeared fierce on the surface, but in reality, the number of people she had truly liked could be counted on 2 fingers. After speaking, Su Qingyin once again increased the volume of the television. This time, not only could the people next door hear them, the entire building could hear them. In this environment, the only person that could sit still under the covers and chat was probably Tang Jingxian. Next door, Hua Wenfeng was already a light sleeper. Hearing the 2 people next door acting so carelessly, she was furious. But she couldn't possibly go and knock on someone else's door, right? So, Hua Wenfeng endured for an entire night. It wasn't until the next morning that Tang Jingxian and Su Qingyin's room returned to normal. Afterwards, they woke up feeling refreshed. But as Su Qingyin walked into the room to call Hua Wenfeng for breakfast, she noticed the expression on Hua Wenfeng's face. "Auntie, what's wrong? Why do you look so pale?" Hua Wenfeng felt a headache coming on as soon as she saw Su Qingyin. So, she waved her hand and gestured for her to leave. Su Qingyin continued to pester Hua Wenfeng. "Auntie, I'm waiting for you to wake up and teach me how to study nature. When you're done sleeping, you must let me know. I'll be waiting for you in the living room." Hua Wenfeng couldn't be bothered with Su Qingyin. In fact, she didn't even lift a finger as she directly fell asleep. Seeing this, Su Qingyin held back her laughter as she left Hua Wenfeng's room and returned to the dining table. "After what I said, I'm sure Auntie won't even think about getting out of bed today." "You've worked hard, Qingyin," Tongning thanked. "Otherwise, it would have been extremely difficult for me to do it on my own." Tang Jingxian was still resting in his room due to his injury, while Mo Ting had left for Hairue early in the morning. So, only Su Qingyin and Tongning remained at the dining table. As soon as Su Qingyin heard that Tongning was struggling, she leaned on the table and asked, "Auntie Xia shouldn't be too difficult, right?" "Nothing like that," Tongning replied as she sipped on her milk. "To be honest, I really don't understand why these so-called mothers-in-law have to interfere with their children's lives. Not only that, they always have ulterior motives. After all, this is someone that will be living with her son for the rest of his life. Plus, she doesn't like actors, so why did she insist that you withdraw from the industry? She's being too selfish." Tongning did not say a word. She simply looked at Su Qingyin the entire time. "Fine, let's not talk about this anymore." "But, are you really going to audition for the French film?" Su Qingyin quickly changed the subject. Tongning did not say a word. She simply smiled as she took another bite of her sandwich. There were indeed a lot of people fighting for the opportunity to audition for this film. After all, it was a big production and had guaranteed ratings. Plus, the plot was complete. As long as the actors didn't perform poorly, they would definitely be a hit on TV. There was no need for any other tricks. Tongning had already looked through the script, but she had already played a similar role in the past. So, unfortunately, this role did not appeal to her. After breakfast, Su Qingyin returned to Su Core. After all, she had a bunch of urgent matters to deal with. It didn't take long before Long Jie sent her the exact time of the audition. But, at that time, Tongning was busy tidying up in the kitchen. At this time, Hua Wenfeng appeared from her bedroom. Seeing Tongning's phone vibrating on the table, she grabbed it in her hand. Tongning did not receive any notification regarding the audition time. "You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."